بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا Muhammad وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Welcome all viewers and listeners to yet again another episode of At-Tibyān podcast, which is a project dedicated to helping examine with knowledge in contemporary affairs happening in the Muslim communities. Likewise, we tackle topics such as studying in Saudi Arabia, benefiting from some of the scholars. Also, how to apply to different universities, juggling with marital affairs, along with studies, self-improvement, education, books, and much more. We have weekly uploads every single Monday. بإذن ta'ala, 9 p.m. KSA time, 7 p.m. UK time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and 10 a.m. LA time, California time. Feel free to send us your questions and topics or any comments or concerns to our email, which is in the description below. Hayakallah. Let's get into it, inshallah ta'ala.
Good to be back again.
Hayakallah. So this week, we had the conclusion of the Dawrah that I'm sure our viewers are very aware of now because we talked about it. I think it's the third time.
Yeah.
The third time discussing it, and that's because we talked about leading up to it, and then we also talked about it as it was happening.
Yeah.
Right? Last week. And then now we're talking about it afterwards. And last week, subhanAllah, we were right in the middle of it, and that was, alhamdulillah, was actually the day that we left after recording to go pick up Sheikh Abdullah Najmi, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, from the airport. So alhamdulillah, that was beautiful. Did you have any takeaways or anything that you want to discuss, connected to that before we move on?
Wallahi, the takeaways are many. I don't have my notes with me today like we had last time. But alhamdulillah, it came to an end. Sheikh Ali, Hafidhullah, did a 12-minute, small 12-minute talk, thanking the mashayikh that took part, thanking, those people that were involved and the likes. And inshallah ta'ala, what I can share with people is great news, inshallah. A lot of great is coming off the back of this dawrah. So there are many more mashayikh to come, even before the next dawrah, inshallah. Shaykh is working on a few things. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve him, make it easy for him. And slowly but surely, Shaykh Ali's message is turning into like a small, if you like, central place, mashallah, for the mashayikh to come together. So, alhamdulillah, that's great.
Yeah.
As far as the benefits, I mean, there's so many benefits. Alhamdulillah, we've seen some of Shaykh Sulaiman's benefits have been translated. I've shared some on my channel, you shared some on your Telegram channel. I also came across today Sheikh Saleh Sindi's lecture, actually got transcribed already.
Oh, yeah. I saw it this morning as well. Yeah.
The Arabic of it, yeah. So alhamdulillah, I shared that as well. And I wish I had time to translate it.
Yeah.
I don't, but if anyone there in the audience wants to have a go at it as just to try it out, and will help with proofreading and editing. Even if your Arabic is not that good and you're not at the level but you can translate it for it to be published or whatever I'm sure we're okay proofreading and editing.
100%.
So we'll do that. So if anyone's out there, inshallah, just email the brother. I'll send a similar message on my Telegram channel. I mean, translation or translating stuff, we always love to translate for the audience, especially those that don't understand Arabic. But I think as far as I am concerned, I think my efforts is better spent on teaching people Arabic as opposed to try to translate everything, because we can't keep up with the mashayikh.
Yeah. Everyone has their own niche, and so everyone has their different schedule and time slots as well.
Yeah.
Translating is kind of time consuming. It's very time consuming,
very
actually.
Time consuming.
So sometimes you just gotta. People don't have that window to do so.
You have to pick your fights.
You gotta pick your battles and pick your wars, etc.
I tried to involve myself in some translation works, which were very beneficial. But at the same time, I found that translating takes so much mental power, if you like.
It's a skill as well. So it's not even about like knowing the Arabic language or knowing the English language. It's about wording it in a way that you're putting forward that which is being said in Arabic.
Exactly.
And that right there, it's a skill.
And it takes so much effort that I found myself, I did not even have the time. I didn't have the mental capacity to not prepare for my lessons.
Yeah.
So I had to really choose between the two. Yeah. Either you deliver lessons in classes, or you go sit in an office and you translate work. So inshallah, those of you out there that want to help with translating stuff, we're here to support, inshallah.
No, I'm sure somebody's going to translate it soon. Someone.
I really hope.
Yeah, because it just came out, this morning or maybe last night?
The transcription.
Tafriq. So I'm sure somebody's going to translate it soon, inshallah.
Please send it to us.
And then we'll share it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I really want to share that talk.
Yeah, that was very beneficial.
Inshallah ta'ala, maybe in the future we'll explain it, like do a dars on it, ta'liqat and stuff. Like I mentioned, almost every sentence the Sheikh mentioned, it's kind of like a very densely packed benefit, mentioning a principle from the principles that needs further
100%.
explanation. Yeah.
100%. And on that topic, which I'm actually a fan of as well, which is that spend more time not really translating, but instead giving people the tools so that they can learn themselves.
Yeah.
And they can benefit themselves. I'm more upon that opinion as well, because I think it helps encourage more people, more students to learn the Arabic language.
Definitely.
Versus relying on English or relying on an English translator.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the Quran was revealed in Arabic language. The Prophet ﷺ, he spoke Arabic language. So the Sahaba spoke the Arabic language. So you have to understand it. And this is why Shaykh al-Islam, he leaned toward the opinion that it was wajib.
To learn Arabic.
To learn Arabic. It was wajib. He didn't feel that it was, and I'm paraphrasing, that you could complete your deen in totality except that you knew Arabic.
Yeah, I mean, if it's an obligation upon you, like Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Walis mentioned in Usul al-Thalatha, العلم هو معرفة الله ومعرفة نبيه ومعرفة دين الإسلام بالأدلة. It's an obligation upon you to know your Lord, to know Allah, know His Prophet, and know the religion of Islam upon evidences, then you can't really access those evidences if you don't know the Arabic language.
Exactly.
Unless if you're going to rely on others, but then that person's speech wouldn't be in evidence, because now you have a translator's word.
Exactly.
Not what Allah said. I mean, it could be that He is translating it correctly, and it could be He's translating incorrectly. I mean, something as trivial, not as trivial, something as basic. It's the Shahada. Gets readily mistranslated.
As we looked at last week. Yeah.
Exactly. Surah Al-Fatiha.
Yeah, exactly.
Surah Al-Fatiha, Allah says in Surah Al-Fatiha, and this is the essence of Surah Al-Fatiha, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. That's the essence of Surah Al-Fatiha. You alone we worship, and you alone we ask for help. But the way it's set up, the Arabic language, is that the place of the word within the sentence changes the meaning. So Arabic's not like English. English, they say it's a free, it's a fixed word order language, whereby every word has a specific place. Like Arabic, it's a free word order system, whereby the words can be in different places. But putting the word in a different place gives an added benefit. So the fact that this is تقديم المعمول على العامل, what they call in Arabic. In other words, you mentioned the object first. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ. It means you alone we worship. But would you believe that there are people out there, translations of the Quran or the meanings of the Quran, that you'll find on websites like Quran.com, where someone translated إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ as we worship you? Would you believe that? Which is true, we worship Allah, but that's not kalimat tawheed.
Exactly, that's not the essence of what's being said.
Because Quraysh worshipped Allah.
Exactly.
So why would Quraysh? What was the issue that Quraysh had? Quraysh, they worshipped Allah. But Allah mentioned, لا ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد. You don't worship what I worship, because you also associate partners with Allah. So the point is that something as basic as that, Surah Al-Fatiha, the Shahada, and the likes in your Aqidah, if you're going to rely on translators, then you will never truly know the religion upon evidences.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think that was the example that Shaykh al-Islam he brought in his Majmu' Fatawa. He was talking about Fatiha specifically, about how a person has to pray the five daily salawat. But if they don't know the Arabic correctly, and they don't know the mistakes that they're making, or they don't truly understand it, it could be detrimental moving forward from there on. And even like we talked last week, talking about the Shahada and going over La ilaha illallah, look at how many people now are using that weak translation or transliteration of it and trying to deceive the Muslims away from the true meaning.
Subhanallah.
And that's detrimental.
If you look into the books of Aqidah that talk about how innovations were introduced into the Ummah and how they spread, you'll find that it happened through the Ajam.
That was the
non-Arabs.
That was a statement of, I think, Fadil ibn Ayyab, I want to say.
I can't remember exactly whose statement it was, but the fact that when the Ajam entered into Islam and they became Muslim in their droves, not just with the burden of the false Aqidah they had before, but also with their misunderstanding of the Quran and the likes. That's how innovations basically they spread like wildfire. So not knowing the Arabic language, it's a major problem, And may Allah reward all the translators out there who try their best to at least make something available to the people, right? But sometimes you have to ask yourself, maybe translating everything might be a disservice to the Ummah. everything. Everything.
Yeah.
With everything, I mean even specialized knowledges,
Bro.
such as inheritance, such as ulum al-hadith. These kind of specialized knowledges. Would you believe some people learn? Would you believe some people are learning inheritance laws in English? There are universities out there that teach Islamic studies, and they're going to classical, detailed books on things that are not wajib for a Muslim to know, and they even teach that in English. I don't know if that's a service. Rather, if that university put time on teaching those students Arabic would be better.
From what I understood from some of them universities, at least the ones that I know in the East, I don't know about universities that might be studying or teaching Islamic studies in the West. However, from what I understand, even those ones that you can get your degree in English, from the conditions is still that you know Arabic. Because a lot of the source books, plus a lot of the dalil that you're using, has to be from the marji'.
Yeah.
So, yes, they don't give it like your thesis or something has to be written in Arabic. However, you do need to know Arabic to a certain degree in order to use it as sources.
Yeah, this is a major issue.
So, you touched on an important point, which is that some of these things, it actually leads to more confusion when some of these specific sciences get translated. Like you said, ulum al-hadith, science hadith, fara'id, ajrumiyya, which I'm still not completely understood how to understand.
You know who before this day and age, before Muslims actually went to non-Muslim countries, and you got a lot of Muslims in the West speaking English. Before this actually took place, you know who were the most, if you like, busy or if you like was really working hard on translating stuff? The Orientalists, mustashriqun. That was their job. They were like, wait a minute, if you want to attack Islam, right? And we want to get to the Muslims, we have to translate their source books, right? And then so that our scholars, our Orientalists, they can access it, and so that they can do their thing, you know. So you'll find they translated a lot of things,
especially a lot of the Orientalists from Holland.
Leiden University.
Exactly.
So it's crazy. Anyway, we went down a rabbit hole here, but to basically to conclude, generally speaking, my dear brother, my dear sister, you know, please try your best to learn the Arabic language and do not rely on translators, okay? Even if it is that, you know, like they say, if there's no water, use tayammum, right?
Yeah.
So out of necessity, if you rely on translators today, then fine. But don't feel like that is sufficient.
Yeah.
Some people, they think it's sufficient. Khalas, you know, my ustad translates everything. Because wallahi, akhi, most of the issues that we see going around in the West and most of the confusion is because some translators choose what to translate and what not to. So every translator is kind of like picking and choosing. Yeah. Like, okay, you know, this goes in line with my opinion, goes in line with my position. And then he translates everything that aids his position. Yeah. And he doesn't translate everything that goes against his position. So 100%. That gives the audience the sort of like feeling that, wow, there's almost consensus. Look at what all these scholars say. But he starts translating the other side. So
and I mean, in this day and age, let's be completely honest, there's not really a need for you to stay upon not knowing Arabic. Take one lesson a week, one lesson every 2 weeks. Alhamdulillah, there's so many opportunities online now that you can pay for or free to learn Arabic. There's so many videos on YouTube that you can benefit from to learn Arabic. Just do something very small and just be consistent with it, because like you just touched on, if you don't take those asbab, those means, then what happens is you're in a box and you're relying on somebody to come and bring that information to that box. Until that information gets there, then you're going to be in the dark. Okay. Speaking on online platforms, Akhi, walk us through your dawrah that you just started, or your lessons you just started this week, which I think is tafsir, Arabic, aqidah, from what I've seen.
Yeah. So to be as concise as possible, and I'll talk about this now, but by the time people are watching this podcast, maybe the kickoff event has already happened, because happening tonight, and this podcast is going to be launched tomorrow 9 p.m. on Monday. So maybe we'll clip this out and we'll share this separately. But
Inshallah.
If you're listening to this, you know, after the fact of the kickoff event, you can still join. Just inshallah ta'ala, you know, let me know that you came through the podcast, and we'll make space for you, inshallah, for those places with our limited spots. But generally speaking, I've been teaching Quran and Arabic for almost 2 years now.
Alhamdulillah.
And alhamdulillah, I think it goes, this was my mission anyway from when I started learning, or from when I started teaching, is that, like the famous Chinese proverb goes, give a man a fish, you feed him for the day. Teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. So I've been spending a lot of my effort on creating Arabic curriculums and teaching people Arabic, because I believe that facilitating, helping people learn Arabic I think is more powerful in benefiting the ummah and solving the problems than translating and giving only durus. So based on that, there's an Arabic class, the Arabic Essentials course. We've done it before. We're going to do it again, but this time it's going to be slightly different. Last time was too much theory. This time we're going to do a bit more practice, inshallah.
Mumtaz.
So that is a course that basically anyone that wants to learn Arabic, it's kind of like a key to start learning Arabic. It's called the Arabic Essentials course. It's kind of like a key for all the different curriculums, if you like. We focus on some of the most fundamental things or skills you need to have.
And how many times a week is that?
So that one is going to be once a week,
Mumtaz.
possibly twice a week. I'll share all of that tonight, inshallah, at the kick-off event.
Okay.
So the reason why I'm launching these courses, and some of my students are like, Ustadh, every couple of months you're launching courses or you're doing a campaign. No, it's because I created myself an academic calendar whereby there are study periods. So there's like 6 study periods in the year. And the reason I do that is because I've noticed that when you start a course and the course goes on indefinitely for a year, 2 years, and people, they either drop off, and they will drop off a large percentage. They feel like, khalas, the boat is gone.
Yeah.
I can't start.
Yeah.
That's it. They left me.
Yeah.
Like every 6 weeks, we're launching new courses. Every 6 weeks. So, and there are some ongoing courses. So the tafsir course is ongoing every Sunday at 9 p.m. Saudi time, roughly. Changes with the salawat times. Then we have the Aqidah class that we're doing with Markaz Umar. Usul al-Thalatha.
Mumtaz.
Then we have, like I mentioned, the Arabic class, inshallah, for beginners. And then we also have a lesson on daily du'as and adhkar with our brothers at Markaz, with our brothers at Sunnah Seen, some brothers from Malaysia. So we're going to go over Al-Wabil al-Sayyib.
MashaAllah. Ibn al-Qayyim. MashaAllah.
And I'll benefit from the Shuruh of Shaykh Abdul Razak as well. This is a book I've been listening to in my car for a long time. Beautiful book.
Very, very beautiful.
So that's one book. And then finally, a lesson for the youth. A dars specifically targeted for the youth, but it's different. It's not your general, dars going over a book. It's kind of like, I would say like, ask me anything sort of thing. Like, we mention a topic, and then I want the youth themselves to ask questions based on what they heard at school. Because like I said to you, this is something all parents should do, and we want to help with this,
100%.
which is these kids, they hear a lot of things at school.
A lot of shubahat.
And they come across it on TikTok, YouTube, what have you. So they've got all this confusion in their head. And, instead of me deciding what to teach them, yes, which might or might not resonate with them, I'd rather want to give them the opportunity to ask the questions that are on their mind.
Yeah.
And then we're going to answer it. And the main benefit of this course is not just clearing the shubha. What I'm trying to achieve, inshallah, is that as they ask their question, for every question is kind of like a practical implementation of how a Muslim should think. Because I think most of this shubuhat, they are a result of wrong thinking patterns. We don't have the usul, or we don't have the right way. We haven't been cultivated upon the right way to look at things. We should be looking at things, Quran, Sunnah, upon understanding of the Salaf.
So what you're doing is you're essentially providing a safe space for these youth to come and give any shubahat or doubts they may have, and then you address it in a way that's it's going to provide for them some type of blueprint, so to say, so they can follow on with Quran and Sunnah.
I would actually say address it together.
I wouldn't
even address it myself. I might involve others. I use this app called WooClap to involve the audience, and I might ask them like, okay, what do you think about the shubha? Let's break it down. The shubha says X, Y, and Z. Okay, what did Allah say in the Quran? What did the Prophet say in the Sunnah? What did the Sahaba say? Do you have an example from that? Where did the problem come from? Kind of like building their what they call critical thinking. I would call it Islamic way of thinking. The correct Islamic way of thinking. So that is not just a shubha itself. So that they can take this framework for any shubha they might come across in the future. And unfortunately, we find, Akhil Kareem, this is the approach of the people of falsehood. As in, if you look at, I don't know about America, the UK, we have Islamic Studies GCSE.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's basically a secondary education certificate for Islamic Studies.
Interesting. What is that?
It's horrible.
What is that, university or what is that?
At school. It's horrible.
In high school?
Yeah. What would you call high school? We call it secondary school. It's horrible.
Wow.
To the extent that at the age of 16, when I was actually doing the exam at an Islamic school, when I read some of the questions, I just walked off. I said, I'm not going to answer these questions. The principal was so angry. I was at the Islamic school, right? They ask you things like, for example, if Allah is the most merciful, and, you know, why do some people suffer? They ask you things like, mention 3 benefits of the hijab and 3, harms. Or 2 harms. Like something like that. 3 good things about the hijab and 2 bad things about the hijab. And you know, the worst thing is, and this is what my teacher...
It's like mantaqi, yani.
It's created by Orientalists, mustashriqun, or Muslims who have this liberal, secular
way of thinking. Yeah.
So for them, it's kind of like, no. Quran and Sunnah is not... We don't want... Because I said to the teacher, and this is what I used to do, on the run-up to the exam, we're revising.
Yeah.
When they ask a question like, why is this haram? I would say, I'll write down, because Allah Ta'ala said in the Quran, this and this. My teacher reprimanded me. He's like, no, you can't give that answer. I'm like, why? He's like, no, you have to answer it as if the person listening to you is a non-Muslim. You have to be able to convince everyone. They're kind of like training you to be a Muslim, you know, that kind of like explains everything away. Yani this whole mabda, this whole principle of that it's not for a believer, like Allah said in the Quran. وَمَا كَانَ لِمُؤْمِنٍ وَلَا مُؤْمِنَةٍ إِذَا قَضَى اللَّهُ رَسُولُهُ أَن يَكُونَ لَهُمْ خِيرًا فِي أَمْرِهِمْ. So Allah mentions that it is not for a believer, man or woman, that when Allah and His Messenger, they decree something, they have any choice in it. إنما كان القول المؤمنين إذا دعوا إلى الله ورسوله ليحكم بينهم أن يقولوا سمعنا وأطعنا. The speech of the believers when they're called to Allah and His Messenger to judge between them, so they say سمعنا وأطعنا. We hear and we obey. These are the principles in the Quran. This is what Prophet ﷺ has taught us.
Yes.
But they're cultivating our children back in the West
to not go to that.
To not go, rather it's okay, this is haram, but why?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, even if, you know, they feel like, or the Islamic teachers there back in the West, they kind of like, okay, we're going to tell them the bad things about khamar. Because a lot of Muslims, they do this. When they talk about khamar, they talk about zina, they focus a lot on the whys and the harms and these sort of things. There's nothing wrong with that, principally speaking, other than the fact that when you make that the main issue, you're now setting that person up for failure.
Yeah.
Because now everything that is haram is going to look for a why.
Exactly.
You know? Rather, the way it should be set up is that this is haram because Allah said it.
Exactly.
The first maslahah of every ibadah or every hukum, and Shaykh Sulaiman mentioned this.
Yeah, he mentioned this in the Qawaid Fiqhiyya. I was just thinking about this,
Yeah, that the first maslahah, because we're talking about masalih and mafasid, right? That the first maslahah or the first benefit of anything that is haram or halal is that it pleases Allah.
Exactly. Even if we don't know the hikmah, even if we don't know wisdom behind it, that's the first benefit we take from the very beginning.
Exactly.
So what they're doing, from what I get, what you're saying, is they're doing the opposite. They're saying, don't put the Quran and Sunnah to the side.
Yeah.
And let's use
mantiq,
so to say, logic and philosophy, maybe, and jadal, so to say, in order to figure out why, so that we can explain it to people who don't believe in Quran and Sunnah.
That's their excuse.
That's their excuse.
But at the end of the day, even if I'm addressing a non-Muslim, right? And I want to convince him about something being good or bad, yes? I'm not going to talk to him about, like, does it make sense that you go to a kafir, you say to him, don't drink khamar, right? When he's upon kufr. ليس بعد الكفر ذنب.
Yeah.
He's not even a Muslim yet. So the fact that, what is the da'wah of a Muslim aslan when he speaks to a non-Muslim? The first thing he calls them to is tawheed.
Yeah.
First thing he calls him to believe in Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he sent Mu'adh to Yemen, what did he say? إنك تأتي قوم أهل الكتاب فليكن أول ما تدعوهم إليه شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمد رسول الله. If that basis is not there,
translate that.
Yeah, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent Mu'adh to Yemen and said to him that you are going to approach a people from the people of the book, and let the first thing that you call them to be La ilaha illallah. يعني توحيد, they worship none but Allah, وأن محمد رسول الله, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, i.e. that they follow his religion and his sunnah, and they follow him in worship of Allah. So the point I'm trying to make is that even with the non-Muslim, we don't talk about the why. We first establish, yes, you have to believe in Allah,
the correct belief.
Yes, believe in Allah, and we prove to him that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. Once he accepts that, now we can talk. Now ask me what's haram.
Exactly.
I'll tell you, Allah said, the Prophet said, and he will accept it because now he's a Muslim. So this whole premise of, you need to be able to convince the non-Muslims. That's why most of these debates with non-Muslims are wrong. A non-Muslim, any debate.
That in itself needs to be a separate podcast talking about these things. Because as far as like debating and the whole thing that we're seeing now of popularity of going and arguing with the Christians or arguing with kuffar, generally speaking, non-believers, etc. It's all just, it needs to be broken down. So
Nah.
we'll say that for another time. But let's go back to
Yeah.
your courses. So from what I understand, you have, this is like 4 days a week. It's like a mahad.
Yeah, it's 5 different courses, probably a lesson a day. But inshallah, I'll share the exact schedule tonight at the kick-off event. Bidnillah al-Kareem. Those of you that miss it, inshallah, follow the link in the YouTube to join the Telegram channel, inshallah, to find out. But yeah, so that class for the youth,
Perfect.
to come back again, it's not about only the mas'ala itself, the shubha. Most of these youth, they are confused about their religion. Not because of the strength of the shubha.
Yeah.
And not even because of the quantity of the shubha. Not because the shubha are so many, and not because the shubha are so strong. They are confused because they don't have the asl, they don't have the basis.
They don't know how to attack that shubha. They don't know how to start with defending
Exactly. They don't have a basis, a firm basis upon their religion, such that they can notice a shubha and straight away throw it out.
So what you're trying to do in your mahal is you're allowing them to present that shubha that they're having, but then teach them how to walk through it and, so to say, critical thinking
Exactly.
to be able to tackle it, and those shubhat that are similar to that.
Exactly. So basically, it's
Good.
a kind of like a practical implementation, one shubha after the next.
Yeah.
But
Step
they
one,
will
step two,
notice
step
a
three.
pattern,
Yeah.
and there is a pattern. They'll notice the pattern, they'll internalize the pattern. Inshallah, going forward, like I said, I will involve them. So I'll be like, okay, this is the question. How shall we attack it?
Yeah. So by the end of the course, they should know how to deal with shubhat
Yeah.
and be people who use the sources in which they learn from this course to attack anything that might sound funny
No.
or to examine speech even generally.
Just to be firm
Yeah,
on the
be
religion.
firm
Like,
upon
if
religion,
someone
yeah.
says to you who's a non-Muslim, why is it blah, 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 blah? Okay, how do you deal with it? Okay?
Jameen.
First step has to be, Allah said, the Prophet said. That's our number one conversation.
Mm.
And then after that, the hikam and the illahs involved and why the wisdom, that's a different story altogether. But again, this is the problem we have. And even though we say this is a class for youth,
Yeah.
everybody's free to join.
Mumtaz,
Yeah,
mumtaz.
but we're going to keep it at a level that, the youth can kind of like understand.
Yeah,
So when I
yeah.
say youth, I don't mean like 4 or 5 year olds.
Yeah.
Kind of like maybe-
Teenagers.
Yeah,
Young adults.
from 8, 9 upwards.
Mumtaz.
People that can understand these sort of things,
Mumtaz.
obviously.
Mumtaz. And your lessons, they all start at the same time all throughout the week?
Yeah, they're at the same time all throughout the week. Like I said, I'll share the schedule tonight, inshallah.
Mumtaz.
And
And we'll also post the information so that people can get to these courses in the description below as well.
Yeah, jazakallah khair.
Mumtaz. Jameen.
Yeah.
Akhi, may Allah bless you and grant you tawfiq. I don't know how you found the time to do so.
Allah, it's,
Especially being in
Allah make
Magister.
easy. Allah make easy.
I mean, me
Magister.
just dealing with the podcast once a week is I can feel it.
Yeah.
But may Allah Ta'ala make it easy and grant you tawfiq
Ameen ya Rab, ameen
and
ya
put it
Rab.
on your scale of good deeds.
Ameen.
Because these
Ameen.
courses are also free from what I understand, right?
Yeah, they're all free. Yeah.
Everything is free. So they don't have to
All
pay
free.
for anything. They just attend on whether it be Zoom or YouTube or
Yeah.
what's the other one you said? Woo?
No, the Woo Clap is a link that I shared during the lesson.
Oh, okay.
And also a very big announcement, inshallah, today in terms of making these lessons, the recorded lessons, available. So I've been struggling with that.
Yeah.
Wallahi, nobody told us before we started, but as someone who wants to teach online, even Islamic durus, nobody really told me that, hey, you know what? You're actually going to start a small media company. Nobody told me that.
Yeah. When it comes to
You
the
know?
editing, the making sure the recording is there and etc., sound and Yes.
Nobody told me, even uploading it to YouTube and everything.
Yeah.
It's so much work involved. But alhamdulillah, I've got some help,
Alhamdulillah.
inshallah. So I'm going to share with some good news tonight, inshallah, to kick off event.
Jameen.
And inshallah, that's what allows me. And inshallah, I'll share that with you. But that's what allows me to teach these durus because from experience, having done this for so long, I've learned that, look, I should just stay in my lane and do what I do best.
Yeah.
My job as a teacher should be going into the resources, the books, reading it, taking my notes, taking that, organizing it into a way that is suitable for the students, and then deliver it. That should be all that I do, right?
In an ideal situation.
In an ideal situation.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to work towards
Getting to that.
that,
ideal
inshallah. So now all the lessons are free, but of course, alhamdulillah, love the students, they help, they contribute. So it's kind of like these contributions that help us going because I've got some volunteers, I've got people that I've hired to help with all the emails and stuff,
Mumtaz.
and I'm hiring other people to upload stuff as well and these sort of things. So once I get that in place, then alhamdulillah, these 5 durus, and maybe I can set another 5 durus, and Allah make it easy, inshallah ta'ala.
May Allah grant you tawfiq.
Ameen ya Rabb.
Barakallahu fiqh. Tayyib, moving on to the next topic that I want to discuss was actually something that I put in my Telegram group a few days ago that people really seemed to resonate with. It resonated with them, and they liked it. And I thought it was beneficial, so let's go ahead and read it here. You can see it on the screen, right?
Just about. She increased the size.
Yeah, I'll make it bigger. 1 second. There we go.
Ibn al-Qayyim's speech is always beneficial.
Yeah. So this was in his book, Madarij al-Sadiqeen. And he talks about, the best worship, the best ibadah is in accordance with the occasion which it requires. Right? So not giving up too much. Let's just dive right into it.
Okay, let's clarify the question though.
Yeah.
And what was the question about? Because this basically relates to when you look at the ahadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you find a lot of narrations that say, for example, khairul a'mal.
No.
The best of deeds is such and such.
Yes.
And you'll find different things.
Yes.
And then some people are like, wait a minute, how can all these things be the best of actions?
Exactly, yeah.
Right. So it's kind of like an answer to that question that yes, they can all be the best actions, but it depends on different circumstances and occasions.
Exactly. Also, it gives kind of like the servant, the abd, kind of like a idea of how he should set up his schedule throughout the day as well, how to look at it. So by the end of us reading it, I think people will have a general idea of how to go about their day as well. Okay, what's the best thing I should do right now after Fajr? What's the best thing I should do, during this time of Duha, before Duha? What should I do after prayer, before prayer? What should I do at night? What should I do? So it gives you that kind of idea. So Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah ta'ala, who died in the year 751, he stated, and just stop me, akhi, at any point that you feel like you need to put something in.
Yeah.
It says, the fourth type are those who hold that the best worship is to work, to seek the pleasure of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala every moment in according to what the occasion requires. The best worship, and he starts to give the examples now. The best worship on the occasion of jihad is jihad, even if it requires having to give up latencies or supererogatory prayers. I believe this is what it translates as prayers of the night and fasting of the day. And even the completion of obligatory prayers from the original state in the time of peace.
So basically he's mentioning that these things, normally speaking, they're more virtuous than jihad.
Exactly.
So the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala,
Exactly.
the 5 obligatory prayers,
Yes.
they're more virtuous than jihad.
Fasting.
But if it's at the time of jihad,
Yes.
then you can't be like, oh no, salah is more important.
Exactly.
Dhikr is more important.
Exactly.
I mentioned the best deeds are dhikr. So I'm just going to do dhikr.
Exactly.
You guys go and fight.
Exactly. So this is why we see, even on the time of the companions when they were fighting in jihad, and obviously jihad goes under wali al-amr, it goes by a different shurut.
That's
a different conversation. But talking about jihad, generally speaking, you see that the Sahaba, what were they doing? They were praying as they were fighting.
Yeah.
Before the time went out. There's different ways, if you look in the books of fiqh, of how to pray whilst fighting. So, but at that particular time, that's the best action.
Because the Prophet ﷺ, at one of the wars, him and Umar, and some they actually missed Salat al-Asr. He said, and he made dua against the Quraysh. And they missed it because they were actually actively fighting. And that was before Salatul Khawf was legislated. Because now you can't fight and pray the 4 proper salah at the same time. So after that, Allah Ta'ala legislated Salatul Khawf so that the salah can still be prayed and the enemies of Islam can still be repelled.
Allahu Akbar. So now, then he goes on to the second example. The best act when a guest arrives, for instance, is to give him his due and busy oneself with that at the cost of supererogatory acts of worship. The same is true of the rights of one's wife and family.
So if you have a guest over,
it's not the time.
It's not time to read your book.
Yeah.
I'm busy. Knowledge so important. Just give me a moment, akhi,
It's not the time to say, okay, akhi, you go ahead and sit there and I'm going to go and pray Salat al-Layl or do some sunnah. Right now, the best opportunity for you right now to please Allah Ta'ala is to attend to that guest. Now, the best act at the time of instructing the student, teacher to the student, or an ignorant person is to turn the instruction and busy oneself with that. Meaning if you're teaching, that's what you should be busy with. If you're teaching a student, you should be busy with that. The best act of the time of dawn, meaning duha, is to busy oneself with prayers, reciting Quran, supplication, remembrance, and seeking forgiveness of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. The best act at the time of the adhan is to stop whatever supererogatory acts of worship one may be in the middle of and respond to the mu'adhin.
No.
meaning repeating after him and saying the legislated du'as.
No.
The best act at the time of the 5 prayers is to strive and do one's utmost in performing them in the most perfect way, attending to them in the earliest hours, setting out to the mosque, and if it is far, it is even better, meaning more reward in that.
No. No.
The best act when...
And the point here is that may Allah Ta'ala rectify us, and this really touches on us as tullab. And sometimes what would happen is, on our way to the dars, running late for the dars.
Yeah, subhanAllah.
Adhan goes off, you're still on the highway. 5 minutes to iqam, you're like, next exit.
Yeah.
And before you know it, what happens? You get stuck in traffic. You take the exit, you go to the salah, and they finish praying. So it's a big reminder for us as tullab. Because now,
especially in people like in Riyadh.
Yeah, Riyadh.
Riyadh is a different city. I don't think if the people in Medina is going to understand that quite like us.
One exit can make a difference.
One exit is...
So the point is, shaitan, I mean, obviously we fall into this ourselves, this bias where shaitan is like, but you're going to a dars, you're going to ilm is so important. La ya akhi. The adhan went off. The best thing you do right now is go to the masjid. Shaykh Abdul Razak al-Badr, he mentions that. He says that if you want to have khushu' in salah, he says, you need to know that when the adhan goes off, a new mashru' starts called mashru' as-salah. A new project starts called the project of salah. It starts min heen al-adhan. From the moment the adhan goes off, what happens? The project of salah starts. Getting ready for salah, going to salah, being in the masjid before iqamah, making dua, praying your sunnahs. This wallahi is a reminder to myself before anyone.
And I think he actually mentioned that in his explanation of Wab.
Definitely.
Wab al-Sayyid. So you're about to go over that as well. So
inshallah.
Just to skip through some of it. Everybody who wants to read the long text, you can see it in my Telegram group. But skip to the end part because that's what I found, which was very intriguing, especially the last bit. But he says, he continues on, the best conduct during the last 10 nights of Ramadan is to stay in the mosque and in solitude and seclusion without paying attention to the people and being occupied with them. It is even better than attending to them to teach them religious knowledge or the recitation of the Quran, according to many of the scholars. Okay? That is one part that I thought was very beneficial because you see that there's a lot of scholars who actually stop their lessons at the end of Ramadan. Most scholars. But you'll see sometimes in the West, I think we misunderstand this, and you see people still teaching and still, busying the people with lessons throughout, especially late and after Taraweeh or something like that. And that's something that we need to make sure we take note of.
No, I wouldn't even say busy the people. I would say, okay, even if you're teaching, alhamdulillah, is great, but not enough emphasis on the ibadah side of things. Because sometimes, Akhil Kareem, we have to lead by example more than by words.
No.
So even if you're there after, let's say, Salat al-Isha or after Taraweeh, right? You as a da'i, you as an ustadh, you as an imam of the masjid, and you gave them that 10-minute talk, 15-minute talk, and it's last 10 days of Ramadan. If you're not doing i'tikaf, at least, ya Akhil Kareem, get up and say, Yalla ikhwan, let's worship. Let's do some worship now. Now's the time for worship. Go and sit in a corner, read Quran. Not that you're showing off. That's what you should be doing aslan. Yes, if you can't do i'tikaf, then if you're not doing i'tikaf, if you're doing i'tikaf, alhamdulillah. If not, but at least the point I'm trying to make is showing example.
Like you say, you're leading by example. The Prophet ﷺ, he was the best who gave the examples. They didn't sit down and study in detail like we have today, where these halaqat, but they learned a lot of these things. We learned from seeing the Prophet ﷺ.
SubhanAllah, look how many hadith. I saw the Prophet do.
Exactly. So the best example, especially as a da'i, he should be internalizing that which he's reading and that which he's studying, and even this text right here. And now it's in your mind, I'm going to act by it. So then even you acting by it, and again, like you said, it's not showing off, but you're doing it. This speaks louder than words. A person, the way he carries himself and his akhlaq and his manners and the way he, carries himself in front of the people as far as the ibadat, etc. It's going to resonate with the people much more than you just simply saying, Ikhwa, do this, or let's talk about this, or whatever case may be.
No, man, everything has its place.
Everything has its place.
Even if you're teaching those last 10 days, let your teaching and your speech be encouraging people to do ibadah. Don't go now into rudu, the refutations, and this one did that.
100%.
It's out of place.
100%.
Last 10 days, because I've witnessed this. I'll be honest. We spend hours and hours, Akhil Kareem, as people doing i'tikaf in Ramadan last 10 days, sitting with individuals who would spend most of the hours, right? Allāhu musta'an, in those times, that specific time which is so virtuous on things like refutations, these sort of things.
Are you serious?
And then you walk out. Yeah, well, life. I've witnessed that myself.
In the last 10 days of Ramadan, people are busy themselves with refutations.
In i'tikaf, yeah.
La hawla wa la quwwata.
Refutations and things to they call manhaj nights, manhaj issues, you know?
Minhaj nights.
Yeah. You got something.
Akhi, ma fi ma'lum. I have no
You
idea.
never heard of that, yeah?
Never heard of it. First time.
Allah
akhi.
understand.
Tayyib. So the end bit, my computer kind of died a little bit, so I'm gonna use my phone.
Yeah.
So the end bit, it says here, where is it? Aywa. So he says the best conduct at the time of general calamity or when people cause you suffering is to uphold the obligation of patience and to attend to them rather than running away from them. For the believer who attends to the people and is patient over their harm is better than the one who does not attend to them and they therefore do not harm him. So meaning when people are doing wrong by you and calamity is striking you at the time, you don't run from it. Rather, you embrace it with patience.
I mean, in other words, how else would you implement the act of patience?
Exactly.
If
you're always running
everything
from
that's
something,
uncomfortable,
you
everything
run.
that's uncomfortable, you run away from it.
Subhanallah.
And you don't address it, and you're
Yeah.
not patient, and you don't, you know, you're with a few brothers, and someone said something that's off, and you can't take it. Khalas. You're like, these guys, you know, they hurt my feelings, I want to see them. Or you're in a WhatsApp group, or you leave the WhatsApp group. Okay, well, when are you going to then have the opportunity to implement the act of patience?
So. And we're not talking about here somebody who's doing some bid'ah.
No, I'm
Or
talking about the personal issues.
Yeah, we're talking about personal issues, things that, you know, obviously are just, you know, you could say personality issues that people have.
Yeah.
You know, not everyone's going to get along with everyone.
Yeah.
This is
True.
what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So the Sheikh even goes on to explain it in the next text. He says, the best thing is to join the people in anything good, which is better than leaving them. It is best to leave them in evil, as it is better than joining them in that. But if he thinks that he would eliminate it, or at least reduce it by attending to them, it is better to do so than abandoning them. Thus, the best conduct in every time and state is to prefer what pleases Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala in a state of occupying oneself in the obligation or the particular function in which you're doing at that moment.
No.
So that was something I want to share.
I wanted to conclude with that, which Sheikh Abdul Razak al-Badr mentioned, ta'ala, when he talked about something similar to this in the book Al-Wabil al-Sayba, if I'm not mistaken.
No.
And he mentions that the best deed at any time is what goes in accordance with the sunnah at that time.
Jimmy.
That's the principle.
No.
Okay? That's why the hadith of the three companions we all know about, the one that said, I'm not going to marry.
Yeah.
The one said, I'm not going to sleep.
No.
The one that said, I'm not going to eat.
Meat.
No, eat. Fast. He said, I'm going to fast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he said, I'm going to fast and not eat. Prophet said to him, he said to them, yes, I sleep and I pray and I marry and I fast and I eat. Yes, and this is my sunnah. فَمَنْ رَغِبَ عَنْ سُنَّتِي فَلَيْسَ مِنِّي. Whoever turns away from my sunnah is not from me. In other words, this was his sunnah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in the sense that his sunnah, his way of life was encompassing, was full of khair. All the different types. At times, teaching. At times, doing jihad when he calls for it. At times, helping people. And to the extent that if akhi, a slave girl or someone who is from the lowest of the society would want the Prophet's assistance, he would give them assistance. You see? He would give him assistance. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He wouldn't be like, I'm head of state, I got bigger fish to fry. La. Everything has its time, everything has its place, and this is how the Muslim should be. Someone who is a complete Muslim, you know? A complete Muslim, and who does everything. Again, like the Shaykh said, we'll conclude with that. The best action that you can do at any time is the action that is most in accordance with the Sunnah.
100%.
Asking yourself, what would Prophet Muhammad do in this occasion? If you know of it, alhamdulillah. If you don't know of it, then go and find out. Ask the scholars. This is my situation. What would Prophet would have done in this situation?
Jameen.
And you know, and it's different for every person as well. And if Allah Ta'ala has given you ability to seek knowledge and you're very strong, you're studious, you know, then that's the best thing for you to do, as opposed to someone else who Allah has given a lot of wealth, you know, and he's got a business and he can help the ummah with his wealth. And people shouldn't feel like, oh, I wish, you know, I wish I was someone with wealth so I can good man. Allah has given you opportunities and ways to benefit yourself and benefit the ummah, and Allah might not have given others. So look at yourself and your situation, and then look at what's most suitable to to you at
Yeah,
that time.
deal with it accordingly.
No.
Mumtaz. Barakallah feek. All right, Akhi, before we move on, next topic. So we got a few questions connected to, the life of a student, generally speaking, and how the day-to-days will be, so to say, for a student living here in Saudi Arabia. And also, what can a person do living in the West right now in order to prepare if they're going to become a student here. So I want to talk about that generally.
I'll make all of you students, inshallah, even if it's here or even in the West or even in Egypt, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important point, which is you seeking knowledge or you being a student of knowledge is not somehow connected to you eventually being accepted at the university in Saudi Arabia or eventually being in some kind of academic
100%,
place.
100%.
If you're going to be a student of knowledge, you can be one today. No matter where you are, wherever you're listening in from, no matter what your situation is, yes, being a student of knowledge is not like an occupation, like something that you do from 9 to 5. You have to do it, others say don't do it. Something is a lifelong thing that you do.
Yeah, it's not limited to a particular place.
Yeah.
It's not limited to only to Saudi Arabia or only to Riyadh or Medina, etc. It's something which you need to take upon your life wherever you may be.
Yeah.
Okay. But just attending to this question, meaning like what is the student's life generally speaking over here in Saudi? I guess he's talking about the day-to-days, right?
Yeah.
Or she talking about the day-to-days, generally what's surrounding it. Did you want to tackle it first, or you want me to go into it?
No, you go ahead.
I think the life right now, like being in the Magister, the master's program, is much different. So I want to speak about it from the perspective of when we first came here, maybe in the Mahad. So when you came here,
that would be more relevant.
Yeah, that'd be more relevant to somebody who's coming and seeking to study. So when you're first coming here, you go to the language program. And the language program, when I was there, it was from 7:30 to I think about 12:30 or 1 o'clock, something like this. So you're in lessons all throughout your morning. Okay, so you wake up in the morning, you pray Fajr.
Which can change though.
Which can change.
Our uni, I remember I've heard last week that the schedule actually changed to be in line with the kulliyah. So you just have your lesson whenever you have your lesson, just like the kulliyah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got Masai in the evening, sometimes in the morning.
Okay.
They kind of like changed it.
But generally speaking, we'll say, okay, people may just set aside maybe like 5 hours.
Yeah.
5 hours will be generally your hours that you're restricted to the Mahad or the kulliyah, okay, the college or the Arabic program.
Yeah.
So you wake up for Fajr. I would suggest everyone wake up for Fajr and do their adhkar and then do your hifz al-Quran. If you're back in the West right now and you're planning to come, or even if you're just back in the West, generally speaking, you would like to come in the future or studying in the West, that needs to be your barnamij already, which is that getting up for Fajr and doing your adhkar, then your Quran.
Every Muslim.
Everyone who I've seen come here, the more Quran and Arabic you had, the better they did as a student.
Oh, that's so true.
That's something that coming from the West, me personally, I didn't have a lot of emphasis on. But I would definitely advise a younger me or people coming after me to put some serious emphasis on that. No Quran and no Arabic.
I mean, those are the two tools.
The two tools
that you're going to be needing for everything you're going to be studying. I mean, the Arabic goes without saying, obviously.
Yeah.
So, these are basic skills.
Yeah.
And when we say Arabic as well, we don't just mean Arabic as in you can read a book and understand it.
Yeah.
Or you can listen to a dars and understand it. There are a few skills that some people, they overlook. Arabic handwriting.
Yeah.
You're going to go to Ma'had. You're going to be given homework.
Yeah.
You're going to be writing a lot.
Yes.
So start practicing Arabic handwriting.
Yes.
Arabic typing.
Arabic typing.
You're going to need to write buhuth.
Listening.
We struggled, subhanAllah, at the beginning of typing one thing like that.
Sahih.
You know?
Sahih.
It's like completely new to you.
Sahih.
So this is going to make your initial... I mean, you're already struggling with so many things when you're a new student in the Ma'had.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to be struggling as well with your typing and your handwriting is going to make life so much more difficult. So that when
listening
it comes to Arabic...
Listening as well. We used to have Masmoor in the Mahad. I don't know if they still have it.
Yeah.
They have it in Malakso.
Yeah.
Which is a class that was dedicated only to listening.
Yeah.
And doing like imla, dictation.
Yeah.
On what you heard.
Yeah, exactly.
So dictation as well, something that's very important.
Yeah, very important.
You can practice before you come.
Forgotten skills. These things are overlooked. That's when it comes to the Arabic. When it comes to Quran, not just number one, do you memorize the Quran and it will benefit you in terms of your academic studies, because I remember mentioning this to you before that someone is a half of the Quran when you go to the dars of major scholars. And major scholars, they quote a lot of Quran. You know, قال الله قال الله قال الله قال رسول الله. So when you have memorized these ayat in the Quran and even some of these ahadith, specifically Arba'in Nawawi or these hadith are used a lot, all you need to do is write the first 3 words. And that's it. You know which surah it's in, you know where to find it. But imagine if you don't know the Quran.
Yeah.
Every verse that he mentions, you need to, you can write it down and then after that you have to go and search for the ayah in order to find it.
It makes it much more complicated.
It makes it very
for somebody who's went through that type of angle that you're talking about right now. It was much more complicated. It was much more, you're listening and being attentive had to be much higher. That's one. And 2, there's a lot of missed stuff, so you have to go back and listen.
Yeah, definitely.
Because if he goes into the 3rd ayah and you didn't get the second one, now your whole thought process is thrown off.
Yeah. and you don't even have time to understand how the ayah relates to what the Shaykh is mentioning.
Exactly.
But if you already memorized the ayah, the moment he starts the ayah, you can see the connection. Oh yeah, because of that.
Yes.
But now you're actually trying to figure out, okay, the Shaykh mentioned this ayah, he's talking about this mas'ala, where's the connection? Trying to do all of that.
Yes.
Whilst taking notes as well. Allah ya'inakum.
So when you know Quran and Arabic before coming, and I would place serious emphasis on that before coming, then you kind of jump them hurdles of struggling in the note taking, struggling in the keeping in the benefits of what the Shaykh is actually saying. Now you're kind of like following along, and it's more clear to you. You know?
Yeah. And if you already understand Arabic, look, there's one thing you will not learn in the West. Take it from me, right? You will not learn how to speak fluently. Okay, that's something that, like I always say to my students, that in order to read Arabic fluently, you have to read a lot. In order to understand Arabic, when you listen to, you have to listen a lot. Same thing applies to speaking.
Yes.
If you want to speak Arabic fluently, you have to speak a lot.
Yes.
But that's not going to happen in the West unless you have a lot of Arabs around you.
Yeah.
You're not going to have that. So even myself, when I came here to Saudi Arabia, I knew Arabic. I was reading books. I was listening to durus.
You knew Arabic when you came?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
No, I knew Arabic.
MashaAllah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, I knew Arabic. I've done Ajrumiyya and Qatr al-Nada.
MashaAllah.
I knew Arabic, alhamdulillah. But I was not fluent in speaking. I was but you know what? All it took is like 2-3 months before the floodgates open. And that's how it is. Speaking is there's kind of like a barrier. Yes, it's a confidence barrier.
Yeah.
You know how to speak, but because you haven't spoken enough, you're just not confident enough. You're not confident enough. You know how to write, but you can't. So these expression skills, this is something you'll pick up here in Saudi Arabia. Don't worry about that. What you need to worry about is your listening comprehension and your reading comprehension. That you comprehend what you're reading, and you comprehend what you're listening to. And when I say listening comprehension, I know you're probably going to listen to Sheikh Fawzan and Uthaymeen and the likes, but unfortunately your teacher in the Ma'had is not going to speak that slow, number one.
Yes.
And he's probably going to have a dialect.
Yeah.
But you'll pick it up. No worries. You'll pick it up, inshallah. So focus on those things. And when it comes to the Quran, like I said, on top of actually knowing the surah ayat itself, another major benefit is that it will make memorizing stuff so much easier for you. Wallahi, wa billahi, memorizing the Quran, there's so much barakah in it.
Yes.
Specifically when it comes to your ability to memorize, recall, and retain knowledge. It just opens everything up for you.
I mean, at the end of the day, in actuality, you have a whole vocabulary there that you might not know how to unlock yet.
Definitely.
But it's a whole vocabulary.
Yeah.
All them different words, all them using of words. Yeah. Even when you're studying Arabic, where's a lot of the examples come from?
Quran.
The Quran.
Yeah.
So you have that, and you also touched on another point, which is that needing that practice, right? When speaking Arabic. This is why I would advise brothers who are not married, right? Or if you are married, but maybe your situation is such that you can have your family back in the West, try to get through the Mahad before bringing them. Because when you're living in a second, and everybody's background is different, everybody's situation is different. So I'm speaking very generally.
What's the second?
Okay, the housing quarters.
Yeah.
The housing quarters for the students.
Dormitories, yeah.
Dormitories, yes. If you're living in there, then automatically you're going to get a lot of practice, inshallah, so to say. Yeah. If you're mixing with the people, you're going to the matam, you're going to the local cafe, you're going to school, you're walking together. Your roommate, my roommate was Senegalese at the time. I think he was going into master's program.
You must had roommates.
Yeah, we had.
We used to have our own rooms, akhi.
Oh yeah, you guys are spoiled over there.
We're spoiled, akhi.
Yeah, well, we had roommates, and I think Medina University even has more roommates in most cases.
4. Yeah, up to 4.
Some rooms have 4. Some rooms have 2. Yeah. Or actually, when I used to be there, my room had 3.
Yeah.
And then I don't think there's no single rooms, from what I understand. Yeah, so generally speaking, you're going to have roommates. Try to get roommates who are not from the West. You get roommates who's not from the West, khalas. You're practicing right there, especially if they're better than you.
Oh,
if they're
definitely.
people who came ahead of you. Like, alhamdulillah, when I came, I had a student who was, like I said, going into master's program. He was Senegalese, so he came from a background where he was already speaking Arabic.
Akhi, specifically, shout
Hafid
out to the
Quran.
African brothers. Akhi.
Yeah.
Wallahi, akhi. Wallahi, akhi, I've got so much appreciation for the African students at the university, because, akhi, it doesn't matter where they're from, even if they're from the same country. Akhi, you always hear them speak Arabic. Wallahi, last time, it was just 2 weeks ago, 4 African brothers walked past me, which I think are from the same country. And akhi, they're walking past me, they're speaking Arabic.
But a lot of the countries, they speak Arabic, aslan. Like Senegal,
Yeah.
they split into, from what I understood, the system,
Yeah.
right, for education is split into French and Arabic. So you
mashallah.
choose which one you want to go into.
Oh, mashallah.
Most people who you see here, they
Yeah.
choose the Arabic. So they
Oh,
already
that explains
came.
it. That
Yeah,
explains
they
it,
already
mashallah.
came from a
'Cause the Arabic
background.
is on point, akhi.
Yeah, yeah. So
Mashallah. I don't even know why they put them in the ma'had. Wallahi.
there's no need really. I remember one guy from Nigeria. He was speaking some like shi'r, akhi,
Yeah.
in the mahad. Like he was saying
Yeah.
poetry,
Yeah,
Arabic
when
poetry.
when I was there, I remember. So when I was there and I did the test, the placement test, the guy said to me, "You know what? You don't need to be in the ma'had actually, but you have to."
Yeah,
So he put me on Mustawa Thalith. I started from Mustawa Thalith. So
Mumtaz.
there's 4 levels.
yeah,
I started from the 3rd level. So
Mumtaz.
just the 3rd and 4th level. And a lot of these brothers do the same thing.
yeah.
But I would say to you, and my advice, if you're coming from the West, love your Western brothers and stuff, but try not to socialize with them too much, because most of the Western brothers, that's what they do, akhi. They speak English. They speak English amongst themselves. They don't
Yeah.
speak Arabic, and then when they go back to their countries, and you find this actually, you can see the fruits for yourself. You'll find students that have graduated from universities here in Saudi Arabia, and they're still not fluent in the language by the
Yeah.
time they go back. And this is a result of them just socializing with
Yeah.
their Western brothers,
Yeah.
from America or UK, whatever, and not mixing with others. Alhamdulillah, for me personally, when I came, I used to mix a lot with the Saudi students,
Yeah.
especially the Durus. The Durus are major benefit.
Yeah.
Like Dars
Sahih.
al-Bukhari,
Yeah.
one Egyptian brother, one brother from Tachad.
Yeah,
I used to be
man.
very close
So,
with them. I used to travel with them. So alhamdulillah, I picked up the speaking very quickly because of that environment. If you
Yeah,
like.
it's very easy to fall into that environment because it's something that feels familiar. So
Yeah.
when you come here and you're from the West and you see some brothers who are also from the West, it's kind of like, hey, what's going on? Assalamu alaikum. Where
Yeah.
you from? What's going on? And it's easy to get into that vibe of, needing, because you're away from home, you're away from family, you're away from your community. So it kind of happens almost unintentionally, but just keep it as a tanbih or a caution when you do come, that needs to be limited.
I mean, just ask
Because-
yourself, you left your wife and kids for a reason,
Yeah,
right? You didn't leave them to come here and be comfortable.
sahih.
It's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be a little bit of a
Yeah,
social, if you like.
100%, 100%.
You're not going to have the amount of social, if you like, interactions as you would like.
Mm,
But my advice, like you mentioned, try and find roommates
mm.
that the only thing you've got in common is Arabic,
Yeah.
doesn't matter where
the
they come
best.
from.
That's the best.
and try and mix with them as much as possible. And the brothers from the UK and America, from the West, you come across, either put that shart, the condition we speak Arabic, and if you don't fulfill that condition,
That condition is always breaks.
it always breaks.
It always breaks. So yeah, just generally going back. Okay, so the day of a student here, when you get here in the Mahad or you're in the Kulliyah, Fajr, Adhkar, memorizing Quran, Mat'am usually, going to the cafeteria, grabbing some breakfast. Then your day is usually starting now. So now, if you have a little bit of time, do some review, and then go to the Mahad, or you might have to go straight to the Mahad, which is the Arabic program. I don't advise nobody to sleep in the morning,
Yeah.
personally speaking.
Yeah.
The Prophet ﷺ said the blessings of this ummah is in this morning.
No.
So me personally, I haven't seen people who were successful in their studies except that they left sleep in the morning.
No.
Leave that for, I would say, after dhuhr. It's usually a common time to sleep. And also make sure it's not like the whole entire time. Sometimes you might have 3 hours between dhuhr and asr.
But then it goes without saying.
Yeah.
In order to do so, you have to sleep early.
Yeah, you have to sleep
So
early.
late night, staying up, socializing, going out
100%.
to grab some food and a burger and a pizza, it's not going to work.
It's
And I'm
not gonna
telling you,
work.
wallahi, there are brothers out there who are a fitna.
Hey, wallah.
You're going to find students there. First and foremost, you have to know that not everyone at the same level
Yeah.
of studiousness,
So,
right? And not everyone is as motivated.
mhm.
And a large percentage of students, they drop out. Don't
Yes.
think
Especially
all
from
the students
West.
they come here and they, especially from
Especially from the West. The turnover rate is very high.
Very high.
So if you see somebody who's staying up late and they want to go to, they don't want to eat in the matam, the one in the cafeteria in the university. They always want to go outside and eat.
Yeah.
Well, I know some brothers who never ate except that they were eating out.
late. Staying up.
Some brothers who couldn't sleep except that they had Pepsi.
Yeah.
They had some type of 2-liter. They had some type of fizzy drink, as you guys call it in the UK.
Yeah.
They had something like this. If you see people with these type of sifat descriptions, run like the plague.
I mean,
Generally
because
speaking.
at the end
Because
of the
it's
day, what is the point of leaving your wife and kids,
Mm.
you know, in order to waste time, you
Yeah.
know, going out and grabbing a bite every night?
So,
Once in a while, on a Friday, on a
Friday,
Saturday,
yeah.
specifically when you don't have uni the following day, okay.
Yeah.
But the days when you have uni, you have to sleep early in order to wake up early and make the most of your day.
100%. 100%. So that's the morning, what it just generally looks like. After Dhuhr, I would say usually get a small nap, qaylula. Then after Asr, it's up. And everybody's time after Asr changes and differs. Some people do their Quran after Asr. Some people leave their Quran or their review until after Maghrib. Some people start to go to lessons after Asr.
Yeah, most
Some
of the
people
time,
go
yeah.
and do and review after Asr. So that all goes back to what we talked about right before this, which is the occasion which benefits you.
Yeah.
You know, whatever is best for you at that particular time.
But do not, no matter what, don't leave out the durus of the ulama.
Do not.
A lot of students, they fell into this trap whereby they came, they're like, oh, I need to do good in my university, I need to have high grades, I need to memorize Quran, I need to do this, and then they stop coming to the durus.
Yeah.
And those are the brothers we find that when they graduate, they go back, they get taken
Yes.
by misguided groups
If
and
they graduate.
organizations.
If they graduate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they get taken straight away.
Yes.
And that's it. Because they haven't spent time with the ulama, they haven't benefited from the ulama, and what they've gained is basically some sort of academic knowledge only, but not the actual, the taqwa and the ilm and the things that you can get from scholars.
100%. May Allah protect us and make us all better.
I mean,
So yeah, and also with the durus, I mean, it needs to be, nobody's saying you need to go every day, right?
yeah.
Some people, their schedules may not allow it. Maybe they're not even at that level in their Arabic studies. Like Sheikh Fawzan used to always say, your first priority is the university.
No.
And us, yes, we do give priority to the university, right?
No.
And it must be, make sure you're doing your review, you're doing your muraja.
We would have made it to masters if we didn't.
Exactly. You know, may Allah grant us tawfiq for finishing it. And with that being said, you can at least do one lesson a week, at least. Two lessons a week.
Even
3.
more, yeah.
I mean, everybody's different, you know,
Yeah.
but me being married with family, I was able to do a few, alhamdulillah. So I think there should be no excuse.
No.
You should be able to make it to lessons. And if you're in Riyadh, there's even buses that used to go to Sheikh Fawzan's. I don't know if they still go to like Sheikh Saleh or Samis or something.
Yeah.
But they generally will have buses for lessons as well.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. So that's generally the outlook of a day in the mahad, in the college.
Yeah.
Also some different nasiha that's connected to that as well if you're coming. But if you're in the West, I would, again, stress right now, get started, even if you're not accepted. Get a barnamij together where you're doing Quran and you're doing some type of Arabic lessons throughout the week.
This is provided. That's disclaimer, important thing, which is, you know, when you have to the manahij, talab al-ilm, the different programs of seeking knowledge.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, you'll find that there are 2 branches. And you need to know this. There's a branch, yes, for the general Muslim. Right. The Muslim who just wants to know what he has to know from his religion. And then you have a branch for those who are looking to become students of knowledge, tullab ilm. Now the branch that is for general Muslims, they don't normally focus on the memorizing of the Quran, learning Arabic, because that's not your thing now. For you, the most important thing now is to know your deen, know your aqidah, and everything in as much detail as possible, right? But the branch for those that want to become a student of knowledge, then you learn, obviously, the basics, what you have to know for your religion to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then your focus goes more on the Arabic and the memorizing of the Quran, even before you do big books on fiqh. Why? Because now you're basically just getting your tools ready, yes, so that you can dive in and get the most out of it, you know? So you just have to know that, you know, if you're not an aspiring student of knowledge, then all this doesn't apply to you, right? What applies to you is learn your aqidah, learn your fiqh, and memorize from the Quran that which you need in order to pray your salah. And learning Arabic, like we said, do it slowly but surely, but it doesn't take precedence over these other things that we mentioned. I think we wouldn't have really gone into this and talked about the life of a student of knowledge if they come and study in here if this was 3 months ago. right? But we're going into detail now because things have changed.
Yes.
To remind all of you again.
Yes.
Now all of you have the opportunity to come and study in Saudi Arabia.
Alhamdulillah.
They've opened that website where you can apply. Even my uni, King Saud University, they tweeted last night.
Yeah, mine it did too.
Yeah, they tweeted saying that going forward, you want to apply for the university, you go through that portal.
Exactly.
Study in Saudi. .moe, which stands for Ministry of Education.
Yeah.
.sa, whatever.
I posted it to a Telegram group.
Exactly.
And I think it's actually open for another, I want to say 6 weeks, I said. So it seems like they might even be accepting students for next semester. Possibly.
Exactly. So now, because of the fact that it's a possibility for all of the audience, I think that's why we talked about it today. I mean, but if it was like the way it was before, then this probably wouldn't have applied to 10% of the audience.
So.
Because age limit and what have you and these sort of things.
So.
But now, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
طيب, akhi, before we go into the last segment, I had a question for you. This is your week for the question. And my question is pretty simple, to the point. And I want you to be as concise and direct as possible. Okay?
Aywa.
And that's connected to something we already talked about throughout this entire podcast, which is your lessons. Plus, we talked about in the advice for the students who are going to be coming here to try to study, learning Arabic. And my question to you is regarding those two, and that is, what would you say is the easiest route? Maybe not the easiest route, because that might be too complex of a question, but what is the most direct answer you can give to somebody who wants to learn Arabic starting today? So you being an instructor for a few years, knowing, your students, etc., what would you say, would be one thing you would tell them to be consistent with, or, how to go about learning the Arabic language?
Okay. Hard to be consistent on that, but try my best. Bismillah. Obviously, depends on the person and his level. There's no doubt. So I'm just going to give a few scenarios, okay?
Perfect.
Now, you're a total, absolute beginner, right? Maybe you just reverted to Islam or what have you. Well, if you don't know how to read Arabic, that's the first thing you need to do. You will not be able to learn the Arabic language unless you learn the alphabet, recognize all the letters, the fatha, kasras and dhammas, and you're able to read. Maybe not fluently, but at least accurately. So that's the first step for someone who wants to learn Arabic. If he doesn't know how to read, you have to know how to read. And I know there are some curriculums out there, even Bain Yadayk, from their philosophy is, hey, learn Arabic without knowing how to read. Just recognize the word. But that's not practical at all. You have to learn how to read. That doesn't make sense. How are you going to teach people Arabic language through a book format and expect them not to be able to read? This doesn't make sense.
So is there a particular book you have in mind that you would tell people to read, to learn Arabic?
How to read Arabic?
Read Arabic, yeah.
I've done a whole course on it. I've done it twice, actually. The Quran reading course. Takes you literally from Alif, Ba, Ta, Tha, Jim, Ha, Kha up until reading from the Quran. So you can find it on my YouTube channel. And there's exercise I've prepared for that as well. I'm not sure if I post that publicly or not. If not, then I'll post them publicly soon. That's step number one. Learning how to read Arabic as fluently as possible.
Jimmy.
Okay, now you can read, mashallah. You paid attention in Quran school when you were young. Or Duksi.
No,
like we say in Somalia.
A lot of us don't have, from the West, people who reverted, they don't have the Quran schools.
Yeah, I mean, not just people that have reverted, akhi. From my lessons, the Quran reading course, when I was doing it, initially I thought, you're going to have a lot of reverts, people that just became Muslim studying. La, akhi, there's a lot of brothers and sisters that have joined who were born Muslim, who used to go Quran schools, but not everyone paid attention in Quran school, akhi. You know what I mean? And it got to a level whereby maybe they were not really practicing when they were younger, and and then they become 20, 30 years old, and now they're shy. They're like, wait a minute, everybody knows how to read.
Yeah.
How am I going to learn how to read? And they just kind of force themselves. That's why I'm saying this, because they kind of because the default is you know how to read, and they expect that they can read, they just jump right into a program, Medina book, or Labani.
Trying to learn Arabic, but not knowing how to read.
But not knowing how to read. And then they struggle. And then they struggle because, they can't even read the words in front of them.
So your first advice would be just to learn how to read properly.
Yeah, I mean, when I say learn how to read properly, I don't. What I mean is, first find out if you can read, because most people they assume they can read, but they can't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or they're too shy. So I had a lot of people coming and be like, alhamdulillah for this course, because I always felt too shy to go to a teacher and be like, teach me how to read, because it's something I'm meant to know.
Is there a particular book that you use in your courses, or?
No, I created my own curriculum.
Oh, mumtaz.
Yeah.
Mumtaz.
Maybe it'll turn into a book later, inshallah. I'll make it easy.
Inshallah.
So if you don't know how to read, or you're not accurate in your reading, learn how to read first, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, now you know how to read. What I mean with you know how to read is, if I give you any Arabic text, you're able to read it, even if you don't understand it.
Yes.
Then my advice to you would be, when it comes to Arabic, right, there are 3 domains. There are 3 things you need to take care of. Vocabulary, grammar, and sounds. Sounds is really overlooked, which is recognizing sounds. And specifically this relates to people that are either reverts or people that have got a very strong English tongue, are not from an Arabic speaking background, if you like, whereby they don't even recognize the ayn and the hamza and the difference between ha and ha. If you don't recognize these sounds when you hear them, then when your teacher says qalb, you're going to hear kalb. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have to actually practice your sound recognition, even before pronunciation.
So
you're going to misunderstand what the sheikh said. This happens so many times, akhi. You know the story. I've been told by one brother that a student went to Islāmic to apply, and the guy asked him, he said to him, هل تعرف المبتدأ والخبر? He said to him, مبتدع. He's like, no, I don't know mubtada, I know mubtadi'. I mean, because mubtadi', in the ayn and the hamza, it sounds similar. So point I'm trying to make is you have to work on sound recognition.
So he said, I don't know the mubtada', but I know a mubtadi', like an innovator.
Yeah. Because he thought he said mubtada'.
No. You said, I thought the story was like, he said, أنا ما أعرف الخبر.
لا ما أعرف المبتدأ. نعم أنا لا أعرف الخبر لكن أعرف المبتدأ. I know mubtadi'. Anyway, point is, that's one thing, sound recognition. Then we have vocabulary and grammar.
Yeah.
Right? That's an age-old debate. Do I learn grammar first? Do I learn vocabulary first? This is a redundant conversation. Yes? You need both. It's like saying to someone, right, I want to get somewhere. Do I need a car or do I need fuel?
Yeah.
You need both. You know what I mean? All right? So you will never, ever learn Arabic, yes, if you have thousands of vocabulary but you don't know how to put a sentence together. Neither will you benefit from the grammar lessons you're taking at Jurumiyya if you don't have the vocabulary to implement it. So you need both. So my advice to you is just memorize as much vocabulary as possible. Yes, and with that, use spaced repetition softwares if you can.
Yes.
These flashcards with spaced repetition. If you don't know what that means, then it's a topic for another day. And when it comes to grammar, na'am. I'm conclude with this. You want me to be concise. When it comes to grammar, yes, what I would say is please and please and please try to avoid becoming a passive consumer when it comes to grammar. Don't be someone who watches a video online on YouTube about Ajrumiyya or the likes about grammar and then feels like, oh yeah, I've done Ajrumiyya, I've done Alfiyat ibn Malik. La. Grammar is something that is practical.
Yes. 100%.
All right? Don't mix up between the grammar written for Arabs and the grammar written for non-Arabs.
Yes.
People, they mix this up. I personally don't even advise someone to do Ajrumiyya as a non-Arabic speaker. Why? Because Al-Ajrumiyya was not written for you. Al-Ajrumiyya was written for people who know Arabic, who want to do tasheeh of their lisan. They want to fix their pronunciation of the words. Sah? Ajrumiyya is not written for you. The best proof I can give you is right at the beginning of Ajrumiyya. What does he say? He says, علامات الاسم علامات الفعل. From the علامات of الاسم or فعل, he'll say to you something like دخول عليه, دخول حرف الجر. يعني from the signs of a noun is that before it can come حرف الجر. أخي, if you don't know Arabic, you'll put حرف الجر in front of anything.
Exactly.
You'll say something like في أذهب. It will sound right to you, you don't see. But the person who knows Arabic, who has the سليقة العربية, they say, to him, في أذهب doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
That's a sign for him that أذهب has to be a verb. But that doesn't apply to you. So please differentiate between the grammar written for those people who have actually understand Arabic and grammar for someone who wants to learn the language. And this is what I try to do with most of my courses, which is let's take the most important things that allow this person to understand the language. So focusing on things like pronouns, completely overlooked, akhi. I mean, how many of these grammar books focus on the pronouns, the 12 pronouns, ana, anta, anta, huwa, when they're joined to a word, to a noun like kitabi or kitabuka or kitabukum, when they are verb conjugation, adhabu, tadhabu, يذهب تذهبين. Most of these classical grammar books, they don't focus on this because they expect the person to know this.
Yes.
But this is something that's extremely important to you. So again, when it comes to grammar, it's not about the theory. It's not about the actual i'rab, if it's dhamma and the reason why it's dhamma, and if it's علامة فرعية, okay, وعلامة رفعه الألف نيابة عن الضم. These sort of technical things, that's not what grammar is about when it comes to you
I
as a
guess we're
learner.
not going to translate all of that, huh?
No, this is grammar stuff, right? Just grammar stuff.
Okay.
And long story short, what you need to focus on when it comes to grammar, yes, is the practical implementation of grammar. Okay. In other words, when somebody says to you, for example, ذهب محمد, or for example, they always use ضرب أخي, ضرب خالد عمرا. Okay, ضرب, hit. They always use that for مفعول به because you can really visualize it. Someone hitting someone, صح?
Yeah.
So let's say Amr hit Khalid, right? When someone says ضرب عمرو خالدا, who did the hitting and who got hit? This is crucial.
Yeah. So
who's the perpetrator?
Yeah.
And who's the victim?
So focusing on how the sentence structure makes sense. That's what
Exactly. Yeah, they call that. It's called every jumla in the language in Arabic. You've got something called umad and fadla. You have pillars of a sentence. You have extra things, extra information, right? So the first thing you need to do is recognize the pillars of a sentence, such as where is the mubtada, where is the khabar. If you don't know which is the mubtada, you know which is the fi'l, which is the fa'il.
I mean, which is the verb and which is the doer of the verb.
Yes, and the maf'ulun bihi as well.
Perfect.
So in Arabic and English, for example, this is easy. If you want to know who hit who, it's very easy. Daraba, and for English, sorry.
Yeah.
Khalid hit Amr.
Yes.
Who did the hitting? Khalid.
Okay. Very easy.
Okay. Amr hit Khalid. Who did the hitting? Amr. What do we do? All we did, we changed the order of the words.
Exactly.
That's English. Straightforward, sir.
Yeah.
The verb comes first. The verbal object, the subject they call it. The fa'il comes first. Then the verb.
Yeah.
And then the maf'ul bihi.
Yes.
That's English. We said fixed word order. Very simple.
But as in Arabic, you have the verb that comes
anywhere.
first. Yeah.
No, in Arabic it can be anywhere.
Yeah, it can be anywhere. Yeah.
You can say ضرب عمرو خالدا.
صحيح.
You can say ضرب خالدا عمرو. You can say خالد ضرب عمرا.
صحيح. Yes.
All of these are correct.
Yeah.
How do you know who hit and who got hit?
The grammar. The i'rab.
Grammar. By looking at the dhamma or the fatha or whatever is niyaba.
Yeah.
So the point I'm trying to say is that this should be your focus. That you actually practice doing this. Okay? Not the actual theory behind it. Rather, that you find the fi'l in a sentence. You find the maf'ulun bihi in a sentence. You find this and you actually practice finding the mubtada and the khabar. It has to be something that's practical. Whereby, for example, you can take a verb from its madi, past tense. You could turn it into a present tense, mudari'. You need to be able how to do this. For example, you want to say something, but you want to make it past tense. You want to make it present tense. A lot of students, akhi, new students, when they're speaking Arabic, they're kind of like time traveling.
Yeah.
You know, within the same sentence, they've got a sentence in past tense and present tense and future tense all mixed up, you know, as if they're time traveling. So again, to conclude, I'm sure I said this for fourth time I'm saying this, but to conclude, right? If you're going to learn Arabic, if you don't know how to read, learn how to read.
Next, when you're learning the Arabic language and you're learning these different grammars and these structures, learn it in a practical way. That you can use it and exercise it yourself.
Nah, these three things. Focus on vocabulary acquisition. When it comes to vocabulary acquisition, that's a whole different ball game. But vocabulary acquisition, when it comes to grammar, make sure it's practical. And also do not overlook sound recognition. And then you have all the other skills that we talked about earlier, making sure you don't forget the writing and the typing and the dictation and these what we call.
Which comes along that you build on top of
Yeah, you build. Don't forget those as well.
Barakallahu feek. So let's go into the last segment of today, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, and that is a segment connected to something that kind of comes from last week's, which was dealing with the those people who like to distort the meaning, so to say, of La ilaha illallah, that there's no deity worthy of worship except Allah tabarak ta'ala, no deity worthy of truth, worthy of worship except Allah tabarak ta'ala, and that is from those sects who deviate in this distortion of this meaning is the Khawarij. And the Khawarij, I want to just give it, like, honestly, this topic is very vast. I think me and you talked about it.
It's crazy.
It's very vast, and you know you can give a lot of different things. What we're trying to do in this podcast is just make it so it's very understandable in a very direct form, giving you some of the most important things, and then moving forward from there, right?
No.
So first, I would start by saying that when you talk about the Khawarij, those people who, and that comes from the the word khuruj, to go against what you would say the wali al-amr, or going against the the head of state, etc.
Muslim ruler.
Yeah. And the Muslim ruler is known by different terminology, so to say, in Arabic, right?
Yeah.
So you have, like in the books on Aqidah, you have al-imama, which is pretty much like the head or the ruler of the people. But you can also hear khalifa or wali al-amr, right? Or hakim. All these different things are synonymous meanings to what this is, which is imama, and it's something which is very important, as the Prophet ﷺ established, and Allah Ta'ala established as well, which is that we follow Allah Ta'ala, then the Prophet ﷺ, and the
that you obey. Ya alladhina amanu ati'u Allah wa ati'u ar-rasul wa ulil amri minkum.
Exactly.
Allah told us to obey Him and to obey His messenger and those who are put in authority over us.
Exactly, which is the wali al-amr
No.
in this context. Of course, there's some different tafsir that we can talk about according to that, but Jama'ahir ulama is that this is the wali al-amr, this is the head of the state. So the imama is very important. It's established, and it has a lot of benefits connected to it. And from the greatest benefits is that it keeps the Muslim body as one. United.
Most important
right?
thing.
Even if this Muslim ruler is somebody who might not be somebody who's just, even if he is someone who is maybe a dhalim, we'll say.
Yeah.
This body and this connection still has its benefits to it.
No. And it trumps all other benefits almost. When it comes to society level,
yes,
it trumps everything.
100%.
And I mean, even we're reminded of it every single day when we're praying salah. You have to have an imam. Imagine 50 people praying salah without an imam.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah.
It's not going to happen. The Muslim ummah cannot function. The Muslim ummah cannot defend itself. The Muslim ummah, or nothing can work without a ruler.
100%.
Okay, regardless of how good or how bad he is, the fact that there's a ruler, there's a government, yes, that is the greatest ni'mah.
100%. And this is something that Sheikh Sulaiman mentioned last week in his dars, Qawal Fiqhiyya, which was a statement from Ibn Taymiyyah, that said 60 years under oppressive ruler is better than 1 hour, I believe he said, right? Without a ruler.
And the Sheikh gave us a personal account
of
his trip. He went to Sudan.
Was it Sudan?
Sudan.
Okay.
Him and a few. It wasn't just him, actually. It was 3 of them. Him, Sheikh Salih al-Suhaimi.
MashaAllah.
And who was the third person? I forgot the third Sheikh. It was 3 of them. Because the Sheikh actually told us in the small room before he mentioned the lecture. And he said that they went there, and then there was some kind of coup. Yes? And the ruler was gone. Right? And while he was teaching, they came to him. They're like, you know what, Sheikh, we need to go. We need to leave.
SubhanAllah.
And he's like, the country got looted in 3 hours.
SubhanAllah.
It's like the whole country. Because if there's no government, all the criminals have got, who's gonna hold them accountable?
There's no restrictions. There's no restrictions. Some people have that, like, and this is what he was talking about in the Qawal Fiqhiyya. Some people have that course that's going to restrict them by way of Quran.
Yeah, Wazi' 3 he mentions. Wazi' Dini.
Yes.
Wazi' Fitri. Wazi' Sultani.
Exactly. And that Wazi' Sultani, which is that way of being under the Wali al-Amr, people are legit scared of that. They know that they'll be held account
there's
rather by
3
police.
things that keep people in line.
Exactly.
Either is there, their fitrah themselves, they know what's right and wrong, and they just have good, the good moral compass.
Yes.
Or it's the sharia.
Exactly.
Right? Or if these both don't work, his moral compass is messed up.
Yes.
Allah said, the Prophet said, still doesn't work.
Yes.
Then okay, no problem.
You have that sultan.
We have that sultan who will make it happen.
That leader, exactly.
You know what I mean? But when all 3 of them are gone, for some people, they don't have that moral compass. They don't care about what Allah and His Prophet said. And the Wali al-Amr is gone, for them it's a field day out.
And that's what he was explaining in his example.
Yeah.
Which was that the whole country was looted in 3 days?
3 hours.
3 hours. Yeah, I'm sorry. 3 hours. 3 hours.
And they took him, he said they took me to the poorest village they could find. Because they said the poorer the village, the less likely will get looted. So the Sheikh spent 3 nights in a poor village until things calmed a bit down, and then they took them out of the country.
SubhanAllah.
Allah
so spinning off of that, understanding that the imama and this having a Muslim ruler in charge is important, whether it be just or whether he have some, inconsistencies being unjust in certain ways, it's still better than not having one whatsoever. Yeah. And honestly, the example for that is clear all around the Muslim world. We can see that. Look at Libya. Look at these different countries. Syria, etc. So from those people who have deviated in this this bab of imama, this bab of aqidah, which is imama,
Yeah,
having
the
a
main
Muslim
people,
ruler.
yeah.
The main people who deviate from this is the Khawarij.
Yeah.
And what is the Khawarij? They are the ones who do khuruj of the Wali al-Amr.
They revolt against
They
the
revolt.
Muslim ruler.
Yes, they revolt against the Muslim ruler, right? So,
So what is to revolt? Sorry, we need to define that.
yes. So, yeah, you want to go ahead and tackle it?
All right, so to revolt, basically, when we say to revolt against the Muslim ruler, the scholars, they mentioned that it doesn't have to be physically or by way of violence or force.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be that they go out and take up arms and take on the army. La. Khuruj starts with the tongue.
100%.
It starts with criticizing the Muslim ruler publicly.
No.
And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, he has warned against it in many ahadith. And like we said, we're not even going to have time to mention all the narrations regarding that. Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned this and he warned against this. And he said that if you want to rectify your Muslim ruler, take him by the hand, speak to him privately.
Sahih.
And if you can't do that, then keep quiet.
Sahih.
Okay? So that's how it starts. It always starts with the tongue. That's why the scholars, they mentioned that the worst of the firq, of the sects, of the Khawarij are the Qa'diyya.
SubhanAllah.
Qa'diyya, not Qa'ida. It's called Qa'diyya.
Yeah.
They are the ones that sit on their chair and do the talk. They're the ones that literally rile people
incite the people.
Incite the people. They are the worst from people of Khawarij.
Yeah.
And they are the ones that, because I mean, for those to be honest, if we keep it simple, right? For people that might not know who the Khawarij are, we'll talk about them, we'll give their sifat and everything. But for those of you that are still a bit lost, thinking to yourself, who are these guys talking about? I'll give you one word. This day and age, ISIS. That's an example.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
ISIS, you got Al-Qaeda and everything, but as an example, these kind of people, right? How did it start? Did it just pop out of nowhere? La, it started with those scholars, yes, who've been inciting the Muslims for all of those years.
No.
From amongst the Ikhwan Muslimun and the Sururi and the like.
No.
That culminated into ISIS. Okay? So that's where it started.
Yeah.
ISIS is where it's finished. That's why the scholars, they warn against the Qa'diyya and those that speak and nobody pays attention. They're like, yeah, but they're only talking out of their love for the Muslim Ummah and their concern for the Muslim Ummah. Why are you scholars quiet? These guys are more concerned, and the scholars keep on warning. Nobody pays attention.
Yes.
Until we have ISIS and the like, Al-Shabaab and the like, who cause mischief on earth, kill innocent people. When we get there, that's when the people are like, oh, subhanallah. Look at ISIS, look at this Khawarij, And now they realize what the scholars have been warning against for some years. So again, the reason we're addressing this right now, and this is the most important thing, is some of you might feel like, ISIS is gone.
Yeah.
ISIS, what's ISIS? ISIS is history. La abadan. The Prophet Muhammad said about the Khawarij, every time one of their horns comes out, their qarn comes out, قطع.
Yes.
This is the reality of the Khawarij, is that Prophet said every time they come out, they emerge, they're cut off. And then they emerge and they cut off.
Yes.
Up until the time of Dajjal. And they'll fight alongside the Dajjal.
SubhanAllah.
Right? So the point we're trying to make is that ISIS might be gone today. But tomorrow someone else will take their place.
Sahih.
Okay? Before ISIS we had the Shabab. Before the Shabab we had Al-Qaeda. Before. This, just in the past 20 years, akhi.
SubhanAllah.
The Khawarij emerged maybe 3 or 4 times. Sah?
Yeah.
So yes, ISIS might be gone now. But it's just a matter of time. Yes?
Before someone comes.
Before they set up another, what they call Khilafah or what they call Islamic State. It's just a matter of time. So unless we address this head on right now, whilst we see people propagate it, we see this on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, you name it. We find people reviving the ideology of ISIS.
No.
And that's why we addressed it last time as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is gaining a lot of strength lately. And the reason it's gaining a lot of strength is because, sorry, I've gone a bit.
No, it's okay.
But we have, when it comes to extremes, there are always 2 extremes. And one gives on to the other. So when ISIS came out and everything, and everybody started running away from ISIS and they started, fearing this ideology, what have you, these what they call compassionate imams. I don't know who came up with that name. These what they call compassionate imams, right? Those liberal imams in America and other places, who advocate, interfaith dialogue and cooperate with the Christians and the Jews, what have you. They gain a lot of strength. They became very prominent.
Yeah.
They came, they gained a lot of followers.
Which pushed the extreme.
That's what happened. So you have ISIS right? People running away from this ideology, they fall into the hands of these compassionate imams. Now we're living the other wave. Right now, there's so many people now warning against these compassionate imams,
that is
doing
leading
YouTube videos,
opposite.
but then at the same time, they're leading people to the Khawarij.
Sahih.
So they talk about Muslim rulers,
Perfect.
and they mention these sort of things. So now people are kind of like going back to the other extreme again.
Yes.
We're in the beginning stages now, believe me.
Yes.
And we've seen that quote. That's one of the brothers sent us. One individual, he said, what did he say? He said the Khawarij were not upon falsehood per se. They just misapplied the hukum, something like that.
No, I understand.
This is crazy. I mean, that individual, let me ask you a question, Akhi. That individual who says now the Khawarij were actually not upon falsehood, with that same word the Prophet used to warn against them, right? That individual, if he lived at the time of the companions, what side do you think he would be on?
Allah understand.
Akhi, the guy lives 1400 years after the companions, yes? And he's already standing up for those people that killed the companions. Just saying they misapplied it. Imagine if he lived at the time of the companions, what side would he be on? Do you think he would have any doubt? Subhanallah.
No. So with that, let's go into maybe give the listeners and the viewers a few different descriptions of things that you can kind of like identify the Khawarij with, right? And I have 8 of them here, and we can add on if we have anything else.
Yeah.
But the first one I had was Sigar al-Sin. Generally speaking, like the Prophet ﷺ said, you will see that they're young in age. Hudatha al-Asnan, meaning they're young. They don't usually have no kibar with them. They don't follow the kibar. They follow these young, really, vigilant. I don't know.
Full of energy.
Full of energy,
And that's
excited.
why they appeal. That's why they appeal to the youth.
And that's why they appeal to the youth. Yes, big time. So that's the first one, which the Prophet said in the hadith, al-hudatha al-asnan, meaning that they're young. As Ibn Hajar, he explained in Fath al-Bari. The next one I had was that, generally speaking, that they are a bit foolish.
Foolish. Yeah, absolutely.
They're young, right? So their wisdom, they don't have any wisdom amongst them.
Yeah.
Right? They don't have any wisdom amongst them, and they're they make rational decisions based upon that energy and that
emotions.
Youth. Exactly.
That's really what it comes down to.
Yes.
Every decision that they make and everything that convinces them is emotions.
So.
That's why even the propaganda videos is full of people that are wounded, people that are killed, the suffering of the Muslims and the like. And then these emotions take the better of them. They don't use their logic. They don't use the adillah. They don't go back to Quran and the Sunnah. Rather, they're fueled by emotions.
Nah. So it says here what? تغلب عليهم الخفة والاستعجال والحماس.
Yeah, they're very hasty.
They're very hasty. They're overwhelmed, right?
Overzealous.
Overzealous, right? And they're very quick as well.
Yeah.
استعجال, right? So the Prophet ﷺ said in an authentic hadith, يأتي في آخر الزمان قوم. And at the end of the time, there will come people, right? حدثاء الأسنان. They're young in age, right? سفهاء الأحلام. Right, they're they're foolish individuals, and this is what we're talking about as far as the second description right here. And Nawawi and other ulama, they go on to explain it as we just explained it here. The third one that I had, did you have anything that you wanted to put in between that? Like, the third one, you want to read this one?
No, go ahead. I'll just.
The third one is al-ghurur wa ta'ali, right? Yeah.
Full of delusion.
Full of delusion and ta'ali. They think they're better, right?
Yeah.
They're deceptive. They're misleading.
Yeah.
They're prideful. They're prideful.
Very arrogant.
Yes.
And prideful. Yeah.
Yes. They think they're better than others, right?
Yeah.
The Prophet ﷺ said that indeed there is amongst you people who worship, and those people who are consistent. They're hardworking. حتى يعجب بهم الناس, until the people will become very amazed by them. تعجبهم نفوسهم. They even themselves will become what? Amazed.
They become amazed with themselves.
They become amazed with themselves. Yes. يمرقون من الدين مروق السهم من الرمي. So they enter into the religion and exit out of the religion just as an arrow goes in and out of its target.
No.
Or of the bow.
No.
Which shows us that was the third one, which is that they're filled with ghurur and ta'ali. They're filled with this type of, being, arrogant and hasty.
No.
The fourth one I heard was al-ijtihad fil ibadah, meaning generally speaking, you will see that they are very vigilant in their ibadah, and they will be very serious about it. But with that being said, they still have that foolish understanding in the way in which they're doing things, which leads them to this extreme.
Which is ajib. I mean, one might have expected that the fact that Prophet ﷺ said so many harsh things about them. And the Prophet ﷺ said about them, and so many, what I mean by harsh things, I mean so many things, to show us the severity of their misguidance.
Yeah.
Right? And the fact that he said about them that they are the worst of Allah's creation.
SubhanAllah.
Yes?
SubhanAllah.
And that they exit the deen. Right? One might feel like, how can they then be so vigilant in their worship? This is from the plot of shaitan.
Sahih.
Right? So shaitan, yes, Iblis, who we need to know has a lot of experience when it comes to misguiding people. Yes? He knows that he's more likely to misguide you. Yes? By way of someone who on the outside looks religious than by someone who on the outside looks like someone who's not religious.
No.
So that's why, because of the fact that the shaitan kind of like feels like they're in the bag, he's like, I'm alright. These guys, I've got them to kill people. I've got them to make takfir of people. I've got them to revolt against the Muslim Ummah and cause all of this trouble. Yes, they're in the bag. I don't need to worry about them per se. Let them worship, let them do whatever they like. Allah will not accept it from them anyway. Instead, let me use them as a tool to misguide others. So it's as if like the shaitan is kind of like encouraging them. I mean, me and you or any general normal Muslim, right? Ibadah is heavy. And ibadah is not heavy because there's anything heavy about ibadah. Ibadah is something that should be the coolest of our eyes.
No. No.
Shaitan makes it heavy.
SubhanAllah.
Alright? Shaitan doesn't allow us. He doesn't want to allow us to sit down and read Quran for an hour without causing waswas and having and reminding us of doing stuff, right?
No.
This effort the shaitan does to the general Muslim, standing in between him and ibadah, shaitan does the opposite to the Khawarij.
SubhanAllah.
He kind of like encourages them, yallah. Why? Because he uses them as a hook, if you like. Yes, and as a bait for the other Muslims, so that the Muslim who doesn't know about them looks up to them and be like, oh subhanallah, look at this brother. Every time Salah is the first guy in the masjid. Look at this beard, look at this zealousness, look how much he fears Allah. Look. And then what happens? They fall for that. And I'm going to share something with you, Akhi. We always hear, and some people will be like, when we hear about some of these Khawarij, when they actually raid their houses and stuff, or when their communities are asked about them, sometimes we hear about them that they actually lived two different lives.
Yeah.
That they were actually people that either had some kind of addictions or they were doing haram stuff.
No.
And they had this, and a lot of you might find it difficult to accept that or to even believe in that. But I'm going to share with you a personal experience I had with an individual. Now this guy, he approached me and he said to me, Muhammad, what's wrong with these? Why are parents sending their children to school on a Friday? Aren't these kids meant to pray Jum'ah? And he was like being very critical of the parents and stuff, almost making takfir of them. And I'm like, well, anyway, from his speech, I felt like he might be affected by this evil ideology. So to cut the chase, I just asked him straight up. I said to him, listen, let me ask you a question. Yeah. What do you say about someone who falls into a major sin? Right? If he drinks khamr or whatever. Oh, he goes to the hellfire. That's aqeed of the Khawarij now. Ideology. That they make takfir of the individual. He goes to the hellfire and stays in there forever.
Yes.
And he goes to hellfire and stays there forever because he's a disbeliever. Because he committed this major sin. How can a Muslim drink alcohol?
Yes.
This is their ideology.
Yes.
So I'm like, okay, wow. Alright, so khalas, you're a Khariji, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, this explains it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But then, akhi, I don't know. I remember this guy. I remember this same guy I'm talking to right now. He used to work for some other Salafi brothers as a butcher. And they fired him. Guess why they fired him?
Because of these thought process.
No. I asked him. I said to him, let me ask you a question here. Do you pray Salah? He said no.
What?
They fired him because the guy don't pray Salah. And I just remembered there was an issue. I said to him, do you pray Salah? He's like, no. I'm like, okay, what's the ruling of the person who doesn't pray Salah? He's kafir. I'm like,
so
what about you? I'm like, what about you? He's like, no. Allah knows what's in my heart. And I'm working hard and I'm trying to make hijrah. And inshallah, when I go back to Algeria, when I go there, I'll start to pray again. And Allah knows what's happening in my heart. I'm like, wow, how did you have the Khariji ideology and the Irja ideology at the same time? Two opposites. It goes back to, again, that's why Ibn Kathir says, هذه الأشكال, he says, أغرب بني آدم. He said they are the most weird of Allah's creation, the most weird of the sons of Adam. The way they think is ajib. How he has both of these together. So the Khawarij, you'll find them to be Khawarij with others, Murji'a with themselves.
SubhanAllah.
That's why, goes back to the point you mentioned earlier, which is they feel arrogant, they're better than the people.
Yeah, they have that ta'ali.
In other words, they will do major sins themselves, but they'll have this ideology of Allah will forgive me, Allah loves me, I'm good, I'll make tawbah, I'm okay.
SubhanAllah.
But when they look at other Muslims, they look down upon them, they're the worst of Allah's creation, Allah won't forgive them. So, subhanAllah, that goes in line with what we mentioned here.
Yeah. So that was the third one, right?
Yeah.
So that was about the ghurur and the ta'ali, and the fourth one was about what having that ijtihad and ibadah.
Yeah, that was that was connected to this as well, in a sense that these people, they have all these opposites. Na'am, they are the worst of Allah's creation. Like the Prophet said, they exited the deen, and the scholars, they've differed if they're Muslim or not. Shaykh ibn Abbas holds that they're disbelievers.
Yes.
Right? And even if they're believers and they're Muslims, they're the worst of the Muslims ummah. Like the Prophet said, they are dogs of hellfire. Naam, subhanallah. Imagine the people of hellfire. People of hellfire. They're dogs. The Khawarij. Alright. Anyway, so they have this on one side, and the other side, they've got ibadah. Like you'll mention in a moment, they've got Quran.
Yes.
Tilawa.
Yeah.
So don't be confused. Wallahi, this is from the plot of shaitan.
Yeah.
Life, who said to you life is going to be easy? Life is a test, akhi.
Sahih.
Sah wa la?
Sahih. So the Prophet ﷺ, he gave us a clear description of him in a hadith in Sahih Muslim, where he said, لَيْسَ قِرَاءَتُكُمْ بِقِرَاءَتِهِمْ بِشَيْءٍ وَلَا صَلَاتُكُمْ بِصَلَاتِهِمْ بِشَيْءٍ وَلَا صِيَامُكُمْ إِلَى صِيَامِهِمْ بِشَيْءٍ. Meaning, your reading of the Quran to their reading of the Quran, it's like nothing.
Who's he saying this to?
He's saying this to the companions.
Subhanallah.
Subhanallah, radiallahu anhum.
Radiallahu.
You would think that your qira'ah, your recitation, is nothing to theirs. And your salat and your prayer is nothing in line to theirs. And your fasting and your siyam is nothing in line to theirs. Who's he referring to? The companions align with their ibadats against the Khawarij. You would think that yours is nothing. Because what? This was their ijtihad and their ibadah. So don't be deceived, Muslims, brothers and sisters. Don't be deceived by these individuals who may seem like they're from the best of doing actions.
Do you know the biggest thing people are deceived by this day and age? Specific when it comes to online. Because when it's online, you might not live with him to see how much he prays, how much psalm he does and stuff. But the one thing that Muslims are deceived by this day and age when it comes to the Khawarij, recitation of the Quran.
SubhanAllah.
The amount of Qur'an out there, yes, who are upon the manhaj of the Khawarij, yes, who people hold in high regard.
Are from the Quran.
A lot of the reciters out there. Famous reciters.
Hold this opinion, you mean?
Yeah, a lot of them.
Yeah, subhanAllah.
Yeah, and a lot of the reciters that people hold into high regard and they hold them like to be a sheikh and what have you, are actually upon this ideology. A lot of them. And you'll find as well that
what you're saying is they have sifat, descriptions of the Khawarij, you're saying.
They're upon the ideology.
Yeah, you're not making tabiyah of them. You're saying
I'm not talking about any particular individual.
Yeah, you're saying that generally speaking, you will see people who have this recitation of the Quran and have this way with the Quran. However, when you hear them speak, some of their statements are in line with the descriptions of the Khawarij.
For example, talking bad about Muslim rulers.
Yes.
Sah?
Yes.
For example, praising or supporting the Muslim Brotherhood or their different factions. Sururis or like you. Yes. Or for example, any of these sort of things.
It's funny you mentioned that because the next description that I had here was connected to reciting the Quran, which is what? Su'al fahm lil Quran.
No.
They have a false understanding of what the Quran is. And then it comes in a hadith, which are sahih. يَقْرَؤُونَ الْقُرْآنِ يَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّهُ لَهُمْ وَهُوَ عَلَيْهِمْ.
La ilaha illallah.
They read the Quran and they think it's something which is a proof for them, whilst in actuality it's a proof against them.
SubhanAllah. They are a people who got astray by way of the Quran. That's why the Prophet Muhammad said in the hadith, هَلَاكُ أُمَّتِي فِي الْكِتَابِ وَاللَّبَنِ. The destruction of my ummah is in the book and milk. The companion said, how, O Messenger of Allah? He said they will read the Quran and they will misinterpret it, and that will lead to their destruction. That's how the Khawarij have gone astray. Showing us the importance, my dear brothers and sisters, when it comes to learning the Quran. And subhanAllah, the Khawarij, they try their best. Wallahi, they try their best to give you the impression that to be from Ahlul Quran is to be one that can recite the Quran, one that's memorized the Quran. There's this ideology, akhi, amongst the Muslim Ummah, that Ahlul Quran are those who recite the Quran, those who memorize the Quran. La ya akhi. Ahlul Quran are those, yes, who first and foremost understand the Quran.
Yes.
Number two, act upon
by
it.
way of that in the Quran.
Yes. And then maybe if they know how to recite it, alhamdulillah. If they've memorized it, khair ala khair.
No.
وإلا, يعني, were all of the companions حفاظ القرآن?
No, they weren't.
They were not.
Actually, some of the kibar of the companions weren't hufal.
Exa-
Which we're not saying not to memorize the Quran, obviously.
Yeah.
We're saying is the importance.
They are
needs
from
to
Ahlul
be.
Quran.
Yes.
Are all of the companions from Ahlul Quran, yes or no? Wallahi,
Yes.
they are.
Yes,
صح?
100%. Yes.
Even though they have not all memorized the Quran.
Yes, exactly.
So, to be from Ahlul Quran, the people from the Quran who are the most special of people to Allah and His special ones, are those who understand the Quran, know its tafsir,
No.
and living according to it. And that's why, listen to this ayah. Because wallahi, it's been misquoted so many times. I've come across. Allah says in the Quran, الَّذِينَ آتَيْنَاهُمُ الْكِتَابِ يَتْلُونَهُ حَقَّ تِلَاوَتِهِ أُولَٰئِكَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِهِ. This ayah, almost everyone misunderstands it. And it goes back to their misunderstanding of the Arabic language. Allah says in the Quran, those who we've given the book to, يَتْلُونَهُ حَقَّ تِلَاوَتِهِ. This word يَتْلُونَ, تَلَا يَتْلُو تِلَاوَةً, yes, it can mean recitation. صح? But that's not the only meaning linguistically. As a matter of fact, the word تَلَا يَتْلُو means to follow. Okay? That's why وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا.
صحيح.
That's why when you have a book, what does it say? الصفحة التالية.
No.
التالي, the following.
No.
Okay? So if you go back to the tafsir of the Salaf, Ibn Abbas and the likes, you'll find that they say يتبعونه حق اتباعه. لا إله إلا الله. الذين آتيناهم الكتاب يتبعونه, they follow it the way it should be followed. That's the tafsir of the ayah.
Subhanallah.
But these Khawarij or ignorant Muslims, how do they translate it? And you'll find this, wallah, if you go to Quran.com and you see the translation of the Quran, most of the translations say they recite it the way it should be recited.
Subhanallah.
لا يا أخي. أولئك يؤمنون به. يعني for your iman in the Quran, يعني your iman in the Quran is measured by how good you recite it. Yani does the ayah mean that those we've given the book to, they recite the Quran the way it should be recited? They are the ones that truly believe in it. Does that mean that your iman is measured by how great you recite the Quran? That's what the Khawarij want you to understand.
SubhanAllah.
That's the Khawarij understanding.
And that goes back to what the Su'al Fahm.
Su'al Fahm.
Their bad understanding of the Quran. As the Prophet also said, يَقْرَؤُونَ الْقُرْآنَ لَا يُجَاوِزْ تَرَاقِيَهُم. They read the Quran, they recite the Quran, but it doesn't go past their collarbone.
As in, it doesn't go to their heart.
It doesn't go to the heart.
It doesn't understand them.
Exactly.
No.
So they have no good understanding of the Quran.
And this is a major example. And I've seen one of these academies, yes, who use this verse as a slogan. It's an academy for Quran reading and stuff. Within the academy, they've got all sorts of misguided people, right? Who are upon different ideologies. Some of them upon the ideology of the Khawarij. But they use this ayah as a slogan. How do they translate it? Those who we given the book to, they recite it the way it should be recited. In other words, come and sign up for our academy. We'll teach you the different qira'at and how to do tilawah so you can become from Ahlul Quran. Wallahi, this is one of the most dangerous misunderstandings, yes, of what it means to be Ahlul Quran. And this leads a lot of the Muslims to idealize and look up to Khawarij. And we have to ask ourselves, how do a lot of the Muslims fall into the traps of the Khawarij? It's because a lot of these people that call to this manhaj are put on a high position because of the Quran they recite and how good they recite it. فهمت علي?
Yeah.
When in essence, the measure that you should have for Ahlul Quran is not how a person recites. The measure you should have for Ahlul Quran is their understanding of the Quran and the way they act upon it and how they follow it. And the first thing you have to follow when it comes to the Quran is Tawheed and Sunnah. So in other words, those who are upon Tawheed and Sunnah, live in accordance to it, upon the way of the Salaf, they are the most deserving of peace, Ahlul Quran, than anybody else. If there's anyone's Ahlul Quran, they are Ahlul Quran.
Exactly. Barakallah fiqh. And I'm just going to go through these last few descriptions quickly because I think our time is running up a little bit. The sixth one was al-kalam al-hasanu al-munammaq, meaning they have beautiful, flowery speech. As the Prophet said, يتكلمون بكلمة الحق. They'll speak a word which is true. Or يقولون من الخير القول البرية. They'll speak a word which is, yani, it sounds very nice, from the best of speech.
They quote the speech of the best of Allah's creation. Muhammad sallallahu
Sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
You know, they quote the Quran, they quote Sunnah, but it's against them. Why? Because they haven't understood it the way the Salaf understood it.
Exactly. They rely on their own faulty understandings.
No.
In which, as we said already from the descriptions, they're usually young. They're not usually going back to the kibar ulama, the major scholars of today, the major scholars of Quran and Sunnah who teach the understanding. When it goes to Quran, they don't go to the tafsir of the Salaf.
They belittle those scholars.
They belittle those scholars. They make takfir of those scholars. They leave off them scholars. And
they belittle knowledge.
They belittle knowledge as well. Yes.
They belittle knowledge as well. They
100%.
say, oh, knowledge. Well, how long are we going to talk about? They say, hawla ulama al-hayd, they say. They're the scholars of, they talk about menstruation and stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas we talk about...
Or they'll say the scholars for dollars.
Yeah.
Or they're just, some type of...
belittlement of knowledge and its people.
Filthy kalam to speak about the scholars and make you not take knowledge from them.
Nah.
And coach directly to them.
Nah.
The seventh one was a takfir wa istibahatu dima, meaning they make takfir of the believers, and they also...
What's takfir?
They declare believers to be non-kufar.
So they declare Muslims to be non-Muslims.
Exactly. They take them out the circle of Islam.
No.
And what?
Without proof or due course. Because takfir is something for the wali al-amr again.
No.
The person who declares someone to be a non-Muslim and then establishes the Sharia rulings upon such an individual is not me and you, the general folk. It's the Muslim ruler.
So
that's not our responsibility.
100%. 100%. And just the last one that I had here was that they had, اتخاذهم, yani they take a type of shi'aran يتميزون به من سائر الناس. So they take a different what?
They like to stand out.
They take the stand out,
the way
and they have their own descriptions, their own details specific to them.
The way they dress,
the way they look, exactly.
Yeah.
So you might see them with a particular maybe kufi on, or a particular flag they might carry, or particular something that makes it show that this is our group.
Yeah.
Right, we're the ones who are upon truth. When actuality, when actuality they're not upon that. So that's what I have from the descriptions, and I hope that these descriptions will be something that allow people, the listeners and the viewers, to be someone who can differentiate. And also, when you're going through this and you take these 8 points that we mentioned today, you'll be able to discern through people's speech, especially nowadays on the what we call the internet, right, and on social media platforms where it's really hard to differentiate. Might have people who's they look like they're upon sunnah. They look like they're upon khair. They might have a beard. They might have the kufi. They might have the thobe. They might speak in a way which Quran and sunnah, just like the Prophet said about these individuals. But don't get confused with that.
I think that's why we mentioned the sifat as opposed to individuals.
Yes, exactly.
So a lot of people are like, yeah, Ustadh, tell us who. Give us names. We want to know.
Yeah.
Like, we can. Nothing's stopping us. Wallahi, we can.
Yeah.
But the point is that these names will change.
Exactly.
And others will come up.
And if you don't know the descriptions, then once the names change, then khalas, the whole methodology changed for you. In your mind,
and then you have to come back for an updated list.
Exactly.
We can't give you an updated list of Khawarij of our time,
exactly.
or even misguided people of our times. What we can do is give you the sifat, the characteristics, so that you can recognize them. Like they say, اعرف الحق تعرف رجاله. Know the truth, you'll know its people. And I just want to add this as well. Just for those of you that might belittle or might not understand the importance, the gravity of this situation, right? Is that this is what we're talking about today. Naam, first and foremost, the Khawarij, they are the biggest enemies of Islam. Because they completely give a wrong image of Islam.
No.
Right? No disbelievers or kuffar have ever done a greater damage to the image of Islam than the Khawarij have. Absolutely. No matter how much they try. Right? The kafir has to quote the actions of the Khawarij in order to make Islam look bad. He has to say, look what Muslims did in order to make Islam bad, and he wants to make Islam look bad because what some Muslims did. That's one thing. So their crime towards Islam, wallah, is great. And their crime towards the Muslimun is even greater. And the Prophet mentioned, one of the things he mentioned is يقتلون أهل الإسلام ويدعون أهل الأوثان. They kill the people of Islam and they leave the people of Awthan, or the grave worship, for those that worship others besides Allah. And this is something that we see. It's a fact. More Muslims have died at the hands of these individuals than non-Muslims. That's a fact. Now, once in a while, they might go and blow up a place, in a non-Muslim country, but it's nothing compared to the damage they've done in Muslim countries. My country, Somalia.
Let's make sure we're very clear. We are free of that type of
Of course.
methodology and free of that type of behavior, blowing up something or.
I mean, why else? But our whole, we've been talking about it.
You just gotta make sure we're clear, because you know we're on YouTube. So yeah, we don't agree with either that blowing up kuffar.
That's what we're talking about.
Muslim
of
places,
course.
but also Muslim.
Yeah,
places,
not that I'm saying is that. Yeah, they kill more Muslims than non-Muslims. Not that they should kill non-Muslims, of course not.
Exactly, yeah.
But this is the reality.
No.
The reality is that the Muslims are their biggest victims, unfortunately. And on a personal level, and we hate the Khawarij, obviously, and the ideology for the sake of Allah, right? And maybe, and I'm bringing this up is because you might think it's just something, you know, we're mentioning here. This affects people's life. Me on a personal level, my father, rahimahullah, got assassinated by these people. The suicide bomber actually blew himself up in Somalia, targeting. My father wasn't just he wasn't collateral damage. He was targeted because he was actually an MP in Somalia.
Subhanallah.
Right. So he had a target on his head. Rahmatullah alayhi. And we asked Allah Ta'ala gives him shahada, because the Prophet mentioned that those who are killed by them, they're shuhada. He said, Prophet they are martyrs. Those that are killed by the Khawarij. So may Allah make him from them. So the point I'm trying to make is that this affects people's lives. Right? And Allah knows that I hated them for the sake of Allah before they killed my father. Yes? And I hate them just as much after they killed my father. Yani my hatred for them or that I had for them did not increase just because they killed my father. So the same thing applies to you, my dear brothers and sisters. Yani this hatred that you have for this innovated sect and what they do and the damage they cause to Islam and fellow Muslims and even non-Muslims too. Yes, it's not just because, you know, it's something that's affected you. Yes, even if it hasn't affected you on a personal level, know that it is affecting people out there, you know. So do not belittle this. Do not belittle this. Do not belittle this. We'll give this more attention, inshallah, in the coming podcast, if bi'idhnillah. But educate yourself, and more importantly, educate your children. You might be 40, 30, 50-year-old. They might not, you know, make sense to you. How about your kids?
And just to end on this point, is that also there was some kalam that was going around talking about how, you know, there was some type of, you know, differing amongst this in the earlier sects or something like along the lines. Ikhwan, if you guys hear that kalam, just run away from it. Al-Khawarij are people that you stay away from. There is no differing in this bab.
Absolutely not.
There is no khuruj is okay in this situation, or we should do khuruj here, or it just wasn't applied correctly in this particular methodology.
How about is there one thing that would really make them stand out? I would say if there's one thing, yes, that you can really, you know, pay attention to. This is something that I found that, of course, all of the Khawarij have this in common, but this is the one thing they shy away from the least. You know, killing people and the stuff, you know, some will distance themselves from those actions. Some will be like, oh no, I'm not with ISIS. They're just a little bit less extreme, but they're still Khawarij, right? But if there's one thing they don't shy away from, it's talking about Muslim rulers.
Yeah.
And this is something that is absolutely not acceptable, and this is start of khuruj.
100%.
So if you find someone criticizing Muslim rulers, it doesn't matter how good or how bad that ruler is, as long as that ruler is Muslim. And like the Prophet Muhammad said, إِلَّا أَن تَرَوْا كُفْرًا بَوَاحًا عِنْدَكُم مِّنَ اللَّهِ بُرْهَانٍ. Prophet said, unless that person falls into a clear-cut kufr that can be an evidence for you in front of Allah, yes, unless you have that, yes, and you have scholars that have declared that person to be a disbeliever, that's a different story.
And even that comes with its own shurut.
Even that has its own conditions. But then he's not a Muslim ruler, then the scholars, they look at how do you address the issue. That's a different story.
That's a different, yeah.
But for Muslim rulers in our Muslim lands, if you find anyone criticizing them for what's happening in their country, or new rules that came up, or how things are changing in society, or whatever political decisions that they take, wallah, it doesn't matter who it is. You find someone speaking with that speech, run for your life. Run for your life.
Flee like the plague.
Flee it like the plague. That's how it starts. That's how khuruj starts. And just for the sake of benefit, in our religion, we don't have something called opposition parties. Nafi, you know? We have Muslim ruler and we have, you know, Khawarij. That's it. That's why the Prophet Muhammad said, if anyone comes to you, doesn't matter who that is, doesn't matter how good he is, if anyone comes to you while you are all united under one man, and someone comes to try and, you know, if you like, challenge his hukum, Prophet said, cut his head off.
No.
Doesn't matter who it is. it could be the greatest scholar.
Like we said, this whole topic can be very vast. Like there's a lot of different things that can be talked about against this sect, and they've been around. They're from the earliest of sects.
Yeah.
So they've been around for many, many years, over 1,400 years. So
Yeah.
obviously there's
At
a
the time
lot.
of the Prophet Muhammad it started.
Time of the Prophet
The
ﷺ.
Khawarij.
So there's literally so much that can be talked about. We can't cover it all in just one segment, but we did want to give you guys, or we do want to give you guys some type of description so that you guys can be aware of it and protect yourselves and your family and those around you. And with that, I think it's a good place to stop. Did you have anything else you wanted to add before we stopped it?
Like always, like, subscribe, comment. We can't stress it enough. Alhamdulillah, I've seen the engagement from the audience is getting much better.
Yeah, I want to say Jazakallah Khair. I'm sorry to cut you
No.
off. I want to say Jazakallah Khair to everyone who is, or new subscribers, or who have been commenting and hitting the like button. It's really appreciated, because when you take over these different endeavors, when it comes to these different things on social media or da'wah, you never know how it's going to go. I mean, you have an idea for it, and you try to put what you can up front, but you never know if there's going to be that type of engagement.
Yeah.
So when you see engagement, from a student like myself, a miskeen student like myself, and also from just being a new content creator, it really humbles you, and I'm really appreciative to everybody who's been liking, subscribing, and following and commenting. Keep it up, and we also have an email that you guys can send questions to, comments, concerns, or even subject matters you guys want to get discussed, because all of these different subjects on the podcast, they come from you guys.
Yeah.
For the new subscribers, the reason we started this podcast was to deal with these issues that are relevant today.
Like they say in Arabic, minkum wa ilaykum.
Exactly.
From you and to you.
Exactly. So we get these topics by way of what you guys send to us, by way of what you guys ask to us. And some people who have sent emails, we're going to get to them eventually. There's things that's kind of building up, but we're going to get to it eventually, inshallah. I promise you.
I mean, as much we like to be as encompassing as possible, as much as we talked about Khawarij and the likes, inshallah, in future, and I think somebody asked you about that as well, in the future we'll talk about the other extreme as well.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Compassionate imams.
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of topics that can be discussed, but we take,
one at a time.
One at a time as they come. And obviously importance is given to those which are more from importance, more befitting of repentance. So with that, we'll stop. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. We ask Allah ta'ala to forgive us for our shortcomings, and anything that we said wrong, to forgive us for that. Anything that you say khair is from Allah ta'ala. Wallahu ta'ala. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad.